The story begins with our protagonist Kion relentlessly training his body and mind. Day after day, he dedicates himself to exhausting workouts, perfecting his combat skills and pushing his muscles to the limit with endless strength training. His life has turned into an unending cycle of physical trials. Kion rejects the ordinary, quitting his job to devote all his time to self-improvement. But what are all these sacrifices for? Why does he push so hard along this path? Kion knows the answer. He is preparing himself for the inevitable, the apocalypse that is rapidly descending upon the world. 15 days ago, the whole world shuddered at the unexpected announcement. Monsters are attacking the entire globe. The city was engulfed in alarm, but with it came a wave of skepticism. Many people refused to believe the warning, dismissing it as just another fake or a foolish joke. This distrust turned into disaster. Those who didn't take the threat seriously perished. Kion, worn out by the world, walked, lost in thought. Did these monsters really exist? On his phone, which he was scrolling through as he walked, awful news flashed about the first monster attacks. The guy wasn't sure if these monsters were real. Wasn't there enough human misery and injustice? But his disbelief shattered in an instant. Right in front of him, in the middle of the street, lay something that didn't belong to this world. Kion stopped, stunned. The creature looked like a real nightmare, writhing and twisting on the ground. The monster looked horrible, a twisted body, bony limbs. Anyone would have run if they saw this. Despite its appearance, it wasn't being aggressive, just lying there, defenseless and drained. Kion hesitated. In front of him was a creature he really didn't want to help. In his eyes there was weakness and a longing for home and family, people he might never see again. Kion hesitated, but despite all his fear and skepticism, he made a choice. He freed the monster. The creature looked at Kion with gratitude and handed him a strange object, a silver goblin pill. Hesitant, he took it. Suddenly, a bright notification about system activation flashed before his eyes. When he got home, Kion sat for a long time, staring at the mysterious pill the monster had left him. He held it in his hands, and along with it, an immense choice that could determine his entire future. Meanwhile, the news reported that giant towers were sprouting up all over the world. Before he could even process that news, a blinding explosion went off. And then, right outside Kion's window, in that exact second, one of those towers grew before his eyes. It appeared out of nowhere, like reality itself had cracked. Massive, ominous, it rose from the depths, causing the ground to shake. Those monsters, those strange towers, it all pointed to one thing. The end of the world had arrived. Kion always acted thoughtfully, but maybe it was time for a crazy move. Without hesitation, he swallowed the silver goblin pill. The system immediately granted him the Sage Status window, a guide with the best survival chances. And before his eyes, a book appeared. It was enormous, shimmering with an unnatural light. He grabbed it without thinking. Every touch of the book felt like he could change everything happening around him. The system warned of the apocalypse and, most importantly, combat skills. Kion dedicated himself to training. As the countdown neared its end, Kion felt the world around him change. Suddenly, he found himself in a forest with no one around, not the kind of end of the world he had imagined. Nearby, a fiery sword lay on the ground. As soon as he touched it, the system notified him that training had begun. His skills were determined, and the class best suited for him was assigned, the Battle Swordsman. The system menu displayed everything: name, level, health, mana, and stats. The first mission the system gave him was to survive for 60 minutes in the forest or find an exit. The guide suggested, to survive, he needed to kill as many monsters as possible. Running away wouldn't help him grow, and so the training began. Before Kion appeared a cute creature, a one-horned raccoon at level 1. But the guy had learned not to judge by appearances, because this seemingly defenseless creature suddenly attacked him. Without thinking, Kion killed it in a split second with a single strike. The system reminded Kion. His mana allowed for only 5 skill uses. He decided to get stronger. Creatures continued to attack relentlessly, but Kion kept killing them one after another. His stats were growing with each kill. As he leveled up, points were added, which he used to boost his attributes. However, as soon as his level hit 2, the system unexpectedly dropped him back to level 1. It explained that due to his Sage status, his level would increase more slowly than others. Kion didn't like this. Was it a punishment for his choice? A sense of unfairness washed over him. But when he checked the menu, Kion noticed that his stats had increased and the points remained unchanged. Then he realized the guide wasn't just a bug, but a glitch in the system working in his favor. It wasn't punishment, but an opportunity. The system could become his strongest ally, he just had to move forward. Our hero continued to relentlessly kill creatures one after another. With each kill, Kion gained experience and leveled up. But, as he had suspected, due to the glitch, his level kept dropping back to the starting point, while the points remained saved. This way, it would be easier for him to level up his stats. Kion had 4 main attributes: endurance, strength, sensitivity, and agility. For him, as a battle swordsman, the best choice was obviously to boost strength and agility. Strength would make his strikes more powerful, while agility would help him react much faster. But Kion had a more important task right now: to survive alone in the forest for 60 minutes. So, the guy decided to raise his sensitivity attribute. He easily killed the one-horned raccoon, but that wasn't enough even for training, let alone leveling up. By boosting sensitivity, Kion discovered new ways to hunt. It seemed like the protagonist could even feel the power of others, thanks to his new sensitivity level. Suddenly, a notification popped up about the activation of a hidden quest: kill the level 2 alpha raccoon. Kion didn't expect to see that massive creature, with a long, sharp horn, and even more terrifying claws. After those creatures no bigger than a cat, this one was something else entirely. Before Kion could even step back, the beast charged at him full speed. Thanks to his agility, he managed to leap out of the way. The monster, like a crazed rhinoceros, made a hole in the tree where Kion had just been standing. Kion realized that this creature was nothing like its smaller relatives, but that was no problem for him. The monster made its last leap in life. With one powerful strike, Kion took it down, leaving the beast no chance to survive. That was the last training task, and he completed it successfully. The first stage of his journey was over. Closing his eyes, the boy allowed himself a moment to rest. But when he opened his eyes again, Kion realized he no longer saw the familiar forest. Everything around him had changed. Suddenly, instead of trees, he saw a crowd of confused people. Their eyes were filled with shock, just like his. An announcement crackled over the loudspeaker that all present have successfully completed the training. They are now in the tower lobby. Kion noticed 14 men and 11 women in the room. They all looked like they'd been through the same battle. The announcer finished the message, and panic erupted in the room. The world had radically changed in an instant. Except for our hero, he already knew about the end of the world. A girl next to him asked where they were. Someone from below answered her that this was the tower of the end of the world. Amidst the crowd, a small rabbit appeared before them. Cum, the manager of the lower floors, had a whopping 55 levels and boldly called himself the cutie of the tower. His appearance triggered a flurry of questions. People were ready to pounce, eager for answers. Cum, surprisingly, remained completely calm, as if he had long been accustomed to such reactions. Kion also asked him whether this was really the end of the world, or if they all had to do something. The rabbit decided to answer his question. At first he smiled, but his expression suddenly changed. Instead of the cute face, a terrifying grimace appeared, sending shivers down everyone's spines. The creature told them all about the start of the game, in which every player would be faced with the threat of death. All the Earthlings were now in the towers. To survive, they needed to stick together and climb higher. Kion guessed that if they reached the top, they might be able to return to their normal lives. But Cum didn't know the answer to that question. There was no reason to climb to the top, not then, but the rabbit wasn't about to look for meaning in everything. He explained that only those who climbed higher would have a chance to survive, while staying at the bottom guaranteed death. Cum revealed that many people had already died during the training phase. Yes, it was just a survival guide, but many couldn't even handle that. Unexpectedly, Cum asked if anyone wanted to kill him. This left everyone in shock. Kion didn't understand. Was it a trap? The rabbit looked weak, but his 55 levels suggested otherwise. Kion wanted to step back and not get involved, but the guide instructed him to help the lower floor manager. This meant he had every opportunity to attack the rabbit. So far, the guide hadn't told him anything that could harm him, but this mission felt suspicious. While Kion hesitated, a volunteer stepped out of the crowd. The stranger was thrilled that he could finally strike the rabbit and kill him. The man immediately charged. However, Cum knocked him back with one powerful blow. His silhouette suddenly became enormous and fearsome, revealing nothing but raw strength. Everyone froze in shock. Kumkum immediately counterattacked and killed the assailant with a single strike. The cute rabbit had turned into a muscular killer. Now everyone realized who they were really dealing with. People began to panic, fleeing, fully aware of the gravity of the situation. The man who had just died could have been Kion if he had approached earlier, but the same task still hung over him. Meanwhile, the cutie took on an innocent look again, as if mocking them, waiting for new volunteers. Kion began to doubt. Had the guide made a mistake? Was this a trap meant to destroy him? This small creature stood in the man's blood, smiling and waiting for the next fight, or death. Had the guide been wrong? Or worse, had it lied on purpose? These thoughts sparked unease in Kion. The system interrupted his thoughts with news of the activation of the Sage status. In an instant, the guy realized everything. The activation of the status gave the hero access to the guide and, more importantly, the ability to see the status windows of others. The main character wondered why, at this exact moment, the system had activated the Sage's Eye function. His gaze settled on Kumkum and everything clicked. Suddenly, everything made perfect sense. Kion raised his hand. His movements were calm, but confident. Everyone immediately turned their attention to him. He was the next volunteer. His decision was bold, but everyone knew it was essentially a suicide mission. The cute one was surprised that a first-level guy had volunteered for it. Our hero gripped the hilt of his sword, ready for battle. There was no fear in his eyes, only firm determination. A blonde girl rushed out of the crowd, tearfully urging him to back down. She begged him not to risk his life. Her opinion was echoed by others. Everyone tried to convince Kion to reconsider, but he stood firm. The guy wasn't acting recklessly. He had a clear plan. The rabbit, or rather the monster, lunged at him, expecting him to die just like the one before. Kion's confidence was driven by his brilliant deduction. Earlier, Kumkum had said there were 24 people in the room, but the guy had counted 25. The rabbit hadn't been mistaken. The room had indeed contained 24 people. The dead body on the ground was a hologram created by Kumkum. Kion had figured it out with the help of the Sage's Eye, looking at the status of the man who didn't exist. All the fear for his own life, the terror of facing a monster of such a high level, it all wasn't for nothing. Kion noticed that, despite Kumkum's high level, he had 0 stats. The rabbit was fake, a hologram that would disappear as soon as it took damage. Our hero was quicker and stronger than Kumkum, so he easily dodged the attack. Kion delivered his decisive blow. The cute one, or rather the hologram, wished success to all the brave ones. Kion turned, expecting to see Kumkum's body, but instead he saw a ball. It was all that remained of him. The ball contained 1 stat point. People around asked how he had figured out it was all a lie, but Kion couldn't reveal his secret. Kion said that Jane, the one whose blood had spilled, should have been soaked in it, but she remained clean. A burly redhead approached him, claiming that Kion was making a huge mistake. Leo, a level 4 player, exuded arrogance, stating that Kion was just a lucky guy. Kion calmly asked for an explanation. Leo said that Kion was a coward if, after everything, he still had only level 1. The arrogant one claimed that the main guy should hand over his stat point because he wouldn't survive in the tower anyway. But Kion coldly took the stat point for himself, stating that he wasn't going to back down for anyone. Leo went berserk at such a move and promised not to back off until Kion quit the game. Suddenly, an announcement blared through the loudspeaker about gold that could be spent in the shop. Additional gold was given for killing monsters during the tutorial. The announcer revealed that there was a player in the zone who would receive 7,400 gold. Others either complained about hunting too little or marveled at the one who got such a result. But we know the truth. The best player was Kion. He had gathered the most gold. There are 3 ways to spend gold: buying items, upgrading skills, and improving stats. Our hero decided to play strategically. He raised all his stats to 20, creating a strong foundation. Watching the others, he noticed how many of them spent their gold impulsively, not logically. Realizing that his sports gear wasn't suitable, Kion bought specialized battle clothing. After finishing his shopping, Kion ran into the same blonde girl. She looked a little uncertain and was asking for advice. Jane, a level 3 healer, admitted that she was impressed by his bravery and confidence, despite his level. Kion saw her stats through the sage's eye, but still decided to ask how much gold she had. For her honesty, he advised her to invest in stamina, explaining that it would be key to her survival. Jane thanked him for the useful advice and promised to follow it, adding that she trusted him. A voice over the loudspeaker announced that a new task was about to begin. Players had to form groups of 3. Those who didn't manage to pair up would be assigned randomly. The time limit was 30 minutes. River, a level 4 player, suggested they each share which classes they belong to. Following this, people began to form groups based on class and level. Jane offered to team up, and Kion had no problem with a healer in the group. However, others were avoiding Kion. A first-level warrior didn't seem like a valuable or strong ally to them. The time ran out, all the groups were formed, but the only ally Kion had left was Jane. The task began. Perhaps the groups were formed based on who disliked each other the most. That would explain why Leo ended up in the same group as Kion. Why did such an experienced and strong level 4 player end up without a team? Had everyone really been avoiding him? Kion hesitated, but in the tower, pride meant nothing. The protagonist would find a way to turn this to his advantage. Our trio's first task was to wipe out a pack of kobolds in 12 hours. Leo decided he was the boss and told the others to stay out of it while he handled the monsters solo. Kion was about to bring up teamwork, but his buddy quickly reminded him that he planned to do all the work himself. So all Kion could do was sit back, shut up, and see how things played out. Leo didn't get why a player like Kion even bothered trying to be brave. Dude was gonna get wrecked in no time. Jane, on the other hand, wasn't as reckless. She actually cared about keeping the whole squad alive. 3 completely different people on one team. Wonder if they could actually pull this mission off. Around them, fruit trees stretched high, and bugs were everywhere. Hundreds of annoying little pests. Looking around, Kion figured they had probably ended up somewhere in the mountains. Jane was stressing over whether they could pull off this tough quest. But our guy was confident. If this was just a starter-level challenge, then they'd be fine. As they were talking, something terrifying appeared right in front of them. Huge claws, a muscular body radiating pure strength and power. A level 5 monster, wolf-like, way different from the raccoons they had been killing earlier. Kion and Jane held their breath, trying to come up with a plan. They wanted to check the area to make sure there were no other dangerous creatures nearby. But Leo, not thinking twice, screamed and charged headfirst into battle against the kobold, going solo. He landed a powerful punch right in the monster's face, hoping for a quick win. The others froze. They didn't expect such reckless, even stupid courage. Would Leo's move cost him his life? Could his overconfidence be a fatal mistake? The creature snarled, showing off its sharp, savage teeth, ready to tear him apart. But the guy didn't even think about backing down, answering with just as much wild rage. Kion knew the guy was stubborn, but not this much. He wasn't about to jump into a fight by himself. Jane rushed in to help Leo, using her healing powers and boosting his strength. Luckily, the guy didn't feel any other monsters nearby, giving them a small chance. Kion noticed that Leo was dealing way too little damage, so he decided to look for some clues in his guide. Turns out kobolds were passive creatures that didn't attack first unless directly threatened. That meant Leo had stirred up a hornet's nest and brought the trouble down on himself. Kion frantically flipped through the guide, searching for any useful info. And finally, he found something important. The redhead was fighting with all his might, using his Stone Fist ability. But instead of taking the kobold down in one hit, he'd accidentally attracted the attention of another, even more dangerous one. A level 6 kobold, stronger, faster, with a savage snarl. Now the monsters were attacking together, combining their blows. Leo could barely stay on his feet, desperately continuing the fight, hoping for Kion's help. He started nervously looking around, for a moment thinking their teammate had just run off. The situation was getting critical. His body couldn't take much more of this exhausting fight. And then, Jane, gripping her sword in her hand, charged at one of the kobolds. But she had no combat skills, and her attack was more of a desperate gesture. The girl had already accepted her inevitable death, clutching the sword tightly. But suddenly, the main guy appeared behind her, striking with a poisoned blade. He activated his sword mastery, making the poison work faster. The monster howled as its body started to bubble with pus. The head especially was hit hard by the guy, and then it exploded like a bomb. The level 6 kobold gasped and fell lifeless to the ground. Leo stood frozen in shock. He didn't expect such a sudden turn of events. Jane, on the other hand, didn't hide her joy as the guy had saved her. It turned out that the poison Kion used came from the fruits of the trees they had passed earlier. While the bugs had swarmed everything in sight, they had avoided these particular fruits. The system showed that this poison was deadly to kobolds as well. With the help of his guide, our hero could easily summon poisoned apples right into his hands. You could say the key to solving the first task was with the guy from the very beginning. Kion helped Jane get back on her feet, and she sincerely thanked him for saving her. But Leo wasn't happy about the sudden disappearance of the hero. While he and Jane were fighting, he thought Kion had been hiding in the bushes. The redhead shouted that Kion had literally stolen his victory, but he was the one leading the main battle. Leo couldn't accept that a first-level guy had taken down a monster while he hadn't. The sun slowly dipped below the horizon as they finally reached the kobold settlement. Strong Leo was taking down his enemies with raw brute strength. He was spending almost all his energy on the non-stop, brutal fight. His body was covered in deep wounds as the monsters hit just as fiercely. But despite the exhaustion and pain, he didn't think about giving up, stubbornly continuing the battle. Meanwhile, Jane and Kion were calmly taking down monsters, moving quickly and efficiently. The redhead was fighting in the middle of a whole horde of creatures, while those two hadn't even broken a sweat. He was taking blow after blow, barely managing to defend himself. His legs gave out. He collapsed to the ground, drained and exhausted. He realized he couldn't handle the entire pack by himself, even though he had hoped he could. Leo lay on the ground, trembling, his voice cracking into a pitiful plea for help. He closed his eyes, preparing to take the final blow of his life. But when he opened them again, he saw the heads of the kobolds exploding one by one. Standing above him was Kion, calm and unshaken, extending a hand to help. Leo had never been so glad to see this guy in his life. The task was complete, and with it, it seemed, the tension between Leo and Kion had vanished. After pulling off the mission, our trio rolls back into the lobby, all present and accounted for. Leo's emotional roller coaster, yeah, that's over. And now he's seriously regretting laying all that extra gratitude on a level 2 player, especially calling him Sir. Jane and Leo leveled up 4 times, while Kion only got 2. The redhead was feeling some type of way about the whole situation, but as a man, he couldn't go back on his word. Every single thought was written all over his face, making his behavior seem kinda off to the others. Turns out, our crew finished the mission faster than anyone else. Kion figured it was just dumb luck. Jane? She wasn't buying that. If it weren't for his sharp eye, no one would have even noticed. He hit her back with the same energy for the praise, but deep down, the whole guide lie had him feeling like a straight-up fraud. More groups started trickling back. Maybe they weren't the only ones who played dirty with the poisoned apples. But not everyone got off easy. Plenty didn't make it out alive. Another group stepped out of the portal, but only 2 of them were left standing. Kobolds, vicious and crazy strong monsters. A loudspeaker crackled to life, announcing the mission's end. All 6 groups made it back. But 8 out of 24 fighters didn't survive. They were gone. The mission was brutal. No way was everyone making it through. But 8 people. Makes you wonder, how many more lives will be lost before they reach the top floor? The reward distribution for clearing the first mission kicked off. Any group that didn't lose a single player, and the group that finished first got 1,000 gold each. Our trio? They cashed in on 2 bonuses. Kion decided to save as much as possible. Gold was his safety net. Everyone started buzzing, trying to figure out who came in first. This time, Kion couldn't dodge the truth. River's group was second and saw everything. Just as he was about to explain, Leo stepped up and flat out declared it was them. Everyone was shook. A trio made up of a healer, a low-level player, and a cocky bastard got first place. The main guy hoped this would shift attention off him. But people still couldn't wrap their heads around how a level 2 player ended up leading the pack. The thought hit, maybe the guy did nothing and the reward wasn't even deserved. The blonde was about to jump in, already defending him, but Kion stopped her. No one was gonna listen anyway. River, an 8-level archer and one of the best in the region, cut everyone off. Survival was the only thing that mattered. Liam, also level 8, one of the top swordsmen, backed him up. That sparked an idea. Stick together, climb to the top as a unit, in memory of those who didn't make it. The place erupted in noise until the flames around them turned blood red. The loudspeaker blared again, this time a warning. Due to the region's low survival rate, a penalty mission was now in effect. Not just tough, deadly. The fear on their faces said it all. The rule? They had to pick one player for a guaranteed death. 5 minutes. If they didn't choose, the system would auto-vote, each for themselves. And that's when it hit them. They had 5 minutes to choose. A dead man walking. All those speeches about sticking together? Now they had to pick who'd fight for their life alone. Time was running out. Jane suggested they all vote for themselves to avoid picking a sacrifice. But no one knew if that would work. What if it just meant everyone had to take on the death mission? 5 minutes were slipping away fast. A decision had to be made. Then someone pointed straight at the main character, the weakest one in the room. Some, like Liam, hesitated. Wasn't this too cruel? But there was no choice. It was either him or someone else. No surprises there. With the way people saw Kion, he was the easiest target. No one wanted to die. Jane begged them to stop this madness, but the hero cut her off. No guarantee her plan would even work. Trust was already shattered. The vote turned against Kion. People were just scared for themselves. But to him, the real reason was obvious. He was too low-level to matter. Everyone showed their true colors, who they really were. Selfish, despising the weak. They forgot what it meant to protect those who needed help. And at the last second, even Leo, the one Kion had saved, voted against him. The portal to the death mission opened. Despite everything, people still couldn't believe this was real. Kind-hearted Jane was the only one who truly cared. Leo, though, he thought he'd finally gotten rid of his biggest rival. The sacrifice was chosen. Time to walk his own Golgotha. Behind Kion, faces showed a mix of guilt and relief. But he stayed ice-cold. The guide had told him, take the death mission. Because for him, this wouldn't be death. It would be victory, and a fat reward. After the guy disappeared, the lobby went dead silent. Jane and Leo sat there, not saying a word, each lost in their own thoughts when a guy came up to them. He genuinely sympathized with them. Even though they didn't know Kion that well, their shared struggle for survival had brought them together. But Leo didn't feel any pity or guilt. He thought Kion got what he deserved. The archer didn't get it, so Leo explained. A low-level player was just trying to ride on his fame. Jane, sitting next to him, couldn't believe what she was hearing. She knew it was Kion's skills that had saved them. Leo was yelling something about luck and showing up at the last second. But the blonde girl quickly reminded him who had actually saved his life. The guy's memories rushed in, and he started wondering, could a fighter with those skills really hide his level? River, staring at the spot where the portal had been, said he hoped Kion could handle the task. Jane, barely holding back tears, reassured him that she believed in him, though she was probably trying to convince herself more than anyone. River backed her up, not letting doubts fill the air. Meanwhile, the main character ended up in the same Cobalt settlement, but it was even creepier, almost deserted. Kion admitted he was ready to vote for himself if it weren't for that massive protest in his honor. The guy was fuming with rage because of Leo's actions, so he needed something to take his mind off it. The system notified our hero about the return of the Cobalt group. But this time, they weren't just aggressive, they were straight up pissed. At the back of the group appeared their leader, a level 12 kobold, majestic and terrifying. Kayon's task was to kill every last one of them, leaving not a single survivor. The tribe's leader was the boss of this dungeon, and like all the other monsters, he had some serious power. The hero was left alone to face the whole pack and their toughest warrior. Armed with a sword laced with deadly poison, he faced the enemies. The monsters attacked one after another with no breaks. But Kion was not only quick, he was incredibly strong. Our hero activated his basic swordsmanship skill, and the brutal fight began. The monsters dropped one by one, not even having time to realize what was happening. Only the main enemy was left, the tribe leader, the final and toughest test. The battle was insane, full of power and tension. Two powerful enemies face to face. Turns out, the guy wasn't the only one with superpowers. It made sense, since the monster had a high level. The kobold had learned to minimize damage, expertly dodging the attacks. But suddenly, to Kion's surprise, the leader unexpectedly turned around and bolted. How dare he call himself a boss monster, and then run like a total coward? The hero was preparing to land the final blow and wrap this fight up easily. But just then, the monster's skin turned into something like armor. Kion just scratched the kobold instead of landing the killing blow. Above him, the blood-red moon ominously appeared, tinting everything around in a crimson shade. The wolf-like monster's eyes flared bright red, signaling the start of true horror. The creature turned and attacked the guy with full force. Would our hero survive such a hit? Meanwhile, in the tower, Leo's campaign kicked off, declaring himself the one to lead others to the top. But not many shared his enthusiasm. Jane kept praying for the hero, while the redhead looked on with disdain. The blonde couldn't take the arrogance and tried to shame the cocky guy. They started yelling, drawing the attention of others, and the girl asked what he'd do if Kion survived. Their heated exchange was interrupted by a portal starting to open. Out of it stepped the one many in the room had already buried. Our hero, with a huge open wound on his chest, returned from his deadly mission. He declared to everyone that he had survived. Turns out the boss kobold's power increases when his eyes turn blood red. The monster landed a nasty hit on the guy. He had to make his strike even stronger to kill it. There was only one good hit left that could change everything. Time was running out and death was breathing down Kion's neck. The monster's blows were devastating. A plan flashed through Kion's mind. He needed to land one solid piercing hit instead of all these small scratches. He had to gather all his strength and hit back with one powerful strike. A sword isn't just a weapon that can leave scratches. He had only one shot at this. He had to use the monster's momentum and add his own weight into the strike. Right now, Kion had a choice, either his death or the monster's. He pierced the monster's body, creating a massive, deadly hole. It worked. Kion's skills now included a piercing strike. Jane, ignoring everyone, rushed to wrap the guy in a tight hug. But Leo's huge body knocked her off her feet. The girl actually rolled across the floor from the impact. The redhead's display of feelings left the hero confused. Leo shouted across the whole floor that he believed in Kion, that he believed he'd survive and overcome all the challenges. It was clear as day that the redhead wasn't being real. The main dude saw right through it. Kion's return, almost untouched, no less, had everybody trippin' with questions. Some folks straight up couldn't believe how he pulled off a W without even leveling up. People started doubting if Kion really went through that deadly quest. What if it was just another cum-cum situation? Maybe the dude's just stupid, lucky, and crazy sharp. Kion knew what was up. People always want to keep the underdogs at the bottom. Kids can be brutal. He'd been getting dragged since day one. Nobody believed a nobody orphan could ever make it on his own. While Kion stayed ice-cold, players around him were spinning wild theories about how a level 2 dude straight-up finessed death. He had to do something, take control, before all this attention got out of hand. And just like that, Jane jumped in, yelling at everyone, demanding how they dared to doubt him when he literally bodied death. The guy was low-key impressed by her fire. Leo backed him up too, but let's be real, that was more about self-interest than actual loyalty. Nobody really got why he was putting on this whole act, but ain't nobody dumb enough to argue with a dude that huge. With 2 people in his corner, Kion felt a little less on edge. But at the end of the day, his goal was to save as many lives as possible, and if their suspicions could mess that up, he figured it was time to show him something. When Kion pulled out his sword, the one he scored as a reward after the fight, everyone's jaws hit the floor. People were straight up jealous of his new weapon, a rare rank, plus 15% attack. Every swordsman in the game wanted a piece of that. River, sharp as ever, caught the poison in the apples and started realizing just how quick-witted Kion actually was. But Kion just played it off, saying he was lucky. The archer started defending Kion, arguing that a weapon like that was way more valuable than a little survival experience. But Kion clapped back. This wasn't just about survival. He had been running for his damn life, and that was on all of them. Liam couldn't take it anymore. He broke down and admitted that Kion was right. Kion stopped making excuses. He finally owned up to everyone and to himself that his dreams had been selfish. Voting for Kion, the lowest-level player, was basically the same as kicking him out, and everybody knew it. Liam straight up apologized, admitting they had thrown Kion into danger all alone. The guy was actually relieved that Kion had made it out alive. But not everyone was feeling Liam's guilt. A girl from the crowd spoke up, saying someone had to go, and Kion not only came back but came back with a reward. The 2 of them started arguing. One was talking about guilt and remorse, while the other called it all an act, reminding Liam he had been the first to vote Kion out. Kion shut that nonsense down. He wasn't trying to shame anyone, he just wanted to make sure it never happened again. This whole vote for a deadly mission thing wasn't about testing the weakest. The tower was trying to break them apart. It's setting them up to distrust each other, pushing for conflict and division. And honestly, it probably enjoys sending them straight to their doom. Kion's return was proof. It showed that their choices could actually fight back against the tower's plans. River asked if Kion had a plan. He explained that he'd be looking for the best ways to survive while still climbing all the way to the top. They'd keep moving up, higher and higher, until they reached the very end. The main dude looked up full of hope and said that everyone would get their old lives back. That lit a fire under them again, the spirit of victory, the drive to fight for something better. Jane backed him up. If they wanted to win, they had to stick together. Liam felt it too. He realized he had been dead wrong to judge Kion just by his level. And then, out of nowhere, their so-called manager showed up. None other than the pretty boy Cum. He dropped the news about a brand new mission. After all, this was a survival game, not a damn vacation. His sudden reappearance had people buzzing. How did he come back? Why was he here again? Was he about to hand out some free stat points? But Kion already had a feeling what kind of mission this was going to be. The second-level mission would take place right here, among all 15 players. Its name? The Royal Battle. Pretty Boy smirked, saying that since they were still low-level, the challenge wouldn't be too hard, but they weren't about to trust that rabbit anymore. The rules were simple. Every one of the 16 players would have a duplicate, making it a total of 32 people in one room. The goal? Wipe out all the clones. But here's the twist. Those clones wouldn't just match their stats. They'd have their memories too, making this fight way harder than it seemed. But the biggest rule? The player who kills their own clone gets nothing. However, if you take out someone other than your clone, you score both gold and a stat point. In other words, they had to start killing each other if they wanted a shot at any rewards. And one more thing, if nobody dies within 30 minutes, everyone would be yanked into the lobby real quick and face something straight out of a nightmare. Out of nowhere, a portal ripped open in the middle of the hall, and something horrific started crawling out. Panic hit immediately. People scattered, trying to get away from the massive, disgusting, and very much not human hand. Then the real nightmare began. A monster of unknown level, as tall as a damn skyscraper, started pulling itself through. Just looking at it made you want to dive under a blanket and pray this was all just a bad dream. Was the tower seriously expecting a bunch of players to throw hands with that? A huge shockwave tore through the hall, wrecking everything in its path and tossing people around like puppets in all directions. Kai hit the ground with Jane and Liam to dodge the debris. That massive monster was the literal definition of disaster. The players were expecting something epic, but not like this, and definitely not at level 2. No one believed this was real. Chaos broke out. People were in complete shock. It was time for the main guy to step up and take charge. With some serious agility, he saved the kid who froze in terror at the monster. The mission hadn't even started yet, but the apocalypse was already in full swing around them. Cum was laughing like a total lunatic at the scene. Kane remembered the last words of the hottie about the catastrophe, and a brilliant idea popped into his sharp mind. All of this, including the monster, was a power move. And honestly, neither the freak nor the destruction around them was going to cause any real harm right now. Those who weren't freaked out by the sight of the massive monster were fighting it like crazy. But it wasn't going well. This monster wasn't even flinching, not showing any pain or damage. Watching the other players, the main guy started to doubt if this was all just a setup. Jane, the main healer's, mana was running low. There hadn't been any deaths yet, but it was only a matter of time. A new wave of destructive force from the monster was coming in hot. Kane shouted for everyone to fall back to avoid getting wiped out by the shockwave, but he wasn't thinking about running. Liam tried to pull him away, but the main guy was sure he was the only one who could take down the monster. If you combine a stabbing strike with an unbreakable sword, maybe something will work. Kane's sword was charged with energy, and everyone could feel it as the monster's massive fist came closer. Either the guy dies, or everything our hero planned will work. There's no other option. A flash of light and the hero was standing firm. The power of the strike tore a massive hole in the monster's hand. Then it started to fade into thin air. That huge, menacing monster vanished like it had never been there. Everyone stood frozen, each person's face showing different emotions, but mostly shock. Even the hero seemed speechless. When the shock wore off, everyone screamed, not holding back their joy. Even Kane himself couldn't believe the insane power from the sword, but something had changed in him. Opening the guide, he didn't expect to see what was written there. He used more than his limit, and the power drain would last 3 minutes. The guy collapsed, exhausted. Everything around him started to blur. Just as his vision started to fade, he thought he was about to pass out. Then, the system notified him that his strength was regenerating. It felt like he just took a shot of adrenaline. Other players gathered around him, but his gaze was empty. Our hero still couldn't process the wild swings of power. Liam, standing nearby, was moved. Nobody could believe this guy was hiding such crazy strength. Kane didn't pay attention to his words, or anyone's for that matter. He asked what happened to the catastrophe. Instead of anyone else answering, the main hottie of the tower spoke up, saying it was all just a regular display, and he sent the monster back. Rabbit nervously muttered that they almost died, but at least the atmosphere was still kinda nice. Everyone turned their gaze toward him, some in horror, others with pure hatred. They remembered the mission. Every 30 minutes someone has to die. With such an innocent look, he dropped the chilling bombshell that maybe, just maybe, their killers were standing right there among them. The players' faces were filled with pure terror as they started looking around at each other. Didn't they realize they were being split up again under psychological pressure? That was the end of the floor manager's job. Cum disappeared into the portal. Everyone stared at the spot where Rabbit had just been standing, but no one knew what to expect next. In the lobby, a brainstorming session began, everyone sitting around offering ways to tell a doppelganger from the real person. It seemed impossible since, aside from appearance, their memories were exactly the same. Kane interrupted everyone with the statement that he had a way to solve the problem. He declared that he would be the only one participating in this mission. Nobody expected that kind of response. It was clear from the faces of those present. Kane told everyone to gather at the highest point, and if anyone took action besides him, then they could consider that person a doppelganger. Not everyone was on board with the plan. Dean, a level 8 warrior, was, to put it mildly, not impressed. The girl who had previously doubted Kane's strength, while now acknowledging him as strong, couldn't understand why everyone had to listen to him. Kane reminded them of Rabbit's words, though it was a battle with doppelgangers. In reality, the tower didn't care, even if they killed each other. The main guy wasn't planning on playing by their rules anymore, so he suggested the most optimal plan. Even though there were still some who opposed it, River supported this line of thinking, as it would minimize the damage. But the archer asked if Kane was going to take it all on himself. Does that mean he can actually tell the doppelganger apart? The main guy assured him that he could. The system announced the start of the second-floor mission. The main thing was not to forget to make at least one kill within 30 minutes. Leo was walking, mumbling to himself that Kane was asking too much from him, and he wasn't going to listen. The redhead heard footsteps and hid behind a tree, not knowing if it was the doppelganger. But it was just his bro Kane, who had joked around with Leo. How did such a giant manage to hide behind a tree? The redhead was glad to see his friend instead of a doppelganger. Just then, our hero easily sliced the man in half like soft tofu. Kane held his sword with confidence, effortlessly cutting his partner in seconds. The emotions on his face showed cold-bloodedness, and his eyes burned with mercilessness. Rewinding time back, the main dude prepped for the fight like a total pro, maybe even a little paranoid. He knew he could tell the clones apart from real people, but still, he was stressing, hoping everything would go smooth. Kion dropped a ton of gold on sensitivity stats. He became the first player to unlock absolute senses, maxing that stat out to the top level. My guy had all 5 senses cranked to 100%, letting him detect and track beings within a certain range. Tuning in, he caught some mumbling. He recognized that voice. Using his next-level vision, he spotted who was coming. That was a familiar silhouette. Leo. Dude was like half a kilometer away, but somehow he felt way closer. But nah, his sense of smell, just as sharp. A nasty-ass stench hit Kion's nose, making all his receptors go nuts. Checking where that rank-ass smell was coming from, he spotted a redhead, or more like his stinking clone. Leo kept up the act till the very end, but the main dude clocked him as a fake right away. Looking over to where the real players were supposed to be, he just hoped his plan would work. Thanks to River's support, they managed to reach an agreement, but no one could predict what was coming next. Technically, nothing should go down as long as they stayed up top. Out of nowhere, the system announced that a real player had been killed. That was the last thing the main dude expected, at least not this fast. Kayon's mind started spiraling. Who did this? A player? Had the clones started moving? It was impossible to make sense of anything. Our guy took off at full speed to find them. While he was dealing with another clone, another player got taken out. Thanks to his hyper senses, he caught sight of something straight up horrifying, a player killing another. Only, it wasn't really a player, it was one of those nasty, sneaky clones. Kion didn't even hesitate, he rushed in for the attack. For a split second, it almost looked like a real person, totally innocent. But the main dude wasn't falling for that. No second thoughts, he sliced the clone in half, no mercy. For a moment, Kion thought it was his own copy, but nope, it was someone else. Good thing he caught it early. Luke was dead, a level 4 player, gone just like that, brutal and pointless. Eyeing the corpse, the main dude noticed something that straight up shouldn't be there. Den's clone used an old oversized sword, but the wound on Luke's face? That wasn't from that blade. It was from something smaller, thinner, like an arrow, River's arrow, the same one aimed right at the main dude right now. Hiding behind a tree, and at this distance, Kion couldn't tell if it was the real River or just another damn clone. Focusing in, he spotted an arrow sticking out of River's back. Did a clone get him? Or did he do it to himself? Kion stepped out of hiding, trying to see if the archer was good. River wasn't about to take chances. He couldn't tell clones apart, so he kept Kion at a distance. The main dude just said straight up that he'd just taken out a clone. Was that proof enough? The doubt faded, and relief flashed across River's face. Just as he was about to warn Kion to watch out for his double, he let out a gut-wrenching scream of pain. River collapsed, unresponsive, and the main dude bolted toward him with everything he had. They were heading to a safe spot, but on the way, they ran into Jane, the healer. Why was she here? She was supposed to be safe. That's when Kion saw what River couldn't, the clones. At first glance, it was just Jane and Liam standing together. But thanks to his hypersensitivity, Kion immediately clocked them as fakes. Those two wasted no time. They went straight for Kion and River. Liam and the main dude clashed, sword against sword. Kion radiated pure confidence, while the clone, just cocky arrogance. Meanwhile, Jane lunged at the half-conscious River. For a split second, the main dude wondered, why did these clones reveal themselves so fast and easy? The others played the long game. Jane knew Kion's abilities better than anyone. So why the hell did they charge in, knowing they had zero chance of surviving? Spinning around, the dude barely caught sight of a blonde rushing him with a sword. At the same time, Liam was coming in from the other side. Where the hell was River with his bow and arrows? Thanks to his speed, Kion dodged just in time, flipping back out of reach. And that's when it all clicked. An arrow slammed into a tree, grazing his cheek on the way. It had been aimed straight at him. A mocking laugh rang out, and a chill ran down his spine as he realized exactly who it belonged to. River grinned with a crooked, almost psychotic smile and aimed the arrow straight at his face. That's why they folded so fast. That's why the fight kicked off instantly. They felt the upper hand. The archer wasn't some doppelganger. Dude was a full-blown maniac, straight up thirsty for the main guy's blood. The man was a master manipulator, could play people like puppets without them even catching on. In the end, he got what he craved, kills and the twisted thrill of spilling blood. Kion's feelings were hard to pin down. He didn't see that kind of betrayal coming, not now. What was the guy feeling in that moment? Disappointment, betrayal, sadness, or maybe pure rage? The psycho didn't have to fake it anymore. He was straight up laughing at the hero's situation. Kion wondered when River would drop the good leader act. Turns out dude was even more unhinged. Did he see that backstab coming? Kion hit back, saying he could see other players' stats, and River's had shot up like crazy. He spilled his secret to the player. To the archer, he showed a whole different side. Our guy wasn't just some lucky dude. He was straight up God's favorite. Kion kept asking himself, what's the point of all this? Was gold and status really not enough for him? Not enough to the point where he was down to kill other players? The real reason? The tower was his version of paradise. A place where killing wasn't punished. It was straight up encouraged. Our hero still tried to find an excuse for him, for the guy who had backed him up more than once. But it was useless. A brutal fight broke out, 3 against 1. Who was going to come out on top? The clones fought mercilessly, emotionlessly. Their goal? Kill. The main guy had his own edge. His motivation was stronger. Survival. Kion was faster, stronger, but he was alone. River's arrows were something else, definitely enhanced. They could pierce straight through solid wood. That meant he hadn't even shown his full power yet. The deadliest swordsman, the only healer, and an archer whose shots were lethal from the very first second. This trio left him with almost 0 chances, not just to win, but to even survive. Kion had no clue how River, the real player, managed to convince 2 clones to join him. The archer thought the fight with our hero would be over in no time, but the kid wasn't that easy to take down. Well, for a psycho, that was just a bonus. The longer the fight, the more blood and pain. The 3 attacked the main guy at the same time, ruthless, relentless. Kion didn't flinch. He activated absolute sense. He could feel every movement, every breath, even the slightest glance in his direction. No doubt these 2 clones had some serious stats. Each of them had maxed out the most useful attributes. They played it smart. But no matter what, Kion was simply better. His stats were twice as high as theirs, and on top of that, he had maxed out sensitivity. His moves were fast and precise. Neither Liam's expert swordsmanship nor Jane's healing abilities could save them from their inevitable fate, death. Kion was now face to face with the psycho killer, River. After witnessing everything our hero just pulled off, River started backing up, visibly nervous. The archer dropped to his knees in a desperate plea. But Kion radiated confidence, pure, icy cold-bloodedness. The man started whining, begging for mercy, humiliating himself just to stay alive. He started making up all kinds of excuses, saying he panicked when he saw Kion's abilities. The archer had crossed a line he never should have. Guess he just completely lost it. River begged for just 1 chance to prove he was a good guy. But it was all just a distraction. He reached for an arrow, ready to shoot. He didn't even get the chance. Before he could fire, Kion, without a second thought, slashed him with a fatal strike. Yeah, the main guy wasn't some easy prey. The hero was truly something else, from every angle. Only 13 players and 11 clones were left alive. Kion had hoped everything would go according to plan, but he ended up having to kill a real person. Then, a notification popped up from the system, but this one wasn't like the usual ones. It was glowing blood red. By killing one of the players, he unlocked the Path of Flesh. If he confirmed the request now, he'd get extra buffs for his stats plus clone support. If he took this path and became a killer, he'd gain a huge advantage. A red vortex began to form in front of Kion, and it wasn't a sign of anything good. Inside it, a shadowy silhouette of a woman appeared, surrounded by shadows and flickering light. She was the embodiment of danger, extending her hand to the hero, asking if he was ready to become a killer. The shock was clear on the guy's face, frozen in wide eyes and tense features. Now the mystery was solved. This is how River had convinced the clones to work together. If he took this path, he'd get major advantages: armor, skills, stat boosts, and talents. Kion was definitely nervous, killing those who looked like real people, but they were just clones. But from now on, he'd have to fight against those who chose the killer's path. A huge opportunity stood before the main hero, a chance to rise to the top without hesitation. But despite the temptation, he chose to walk the righteous path without unnecessary killings. Kion didn't want to be like River, a crazy psycho and maniac. When he reached the place where the other players were supposed to be, he was greeted by Jane, Leo, and Liam. The red-haired guy's reaction seemed unusual for him. Our hero even paused for a moment, wondering if he was the crazy one, doubting his own sanity. Gathering everyone together, he sincerely thanked them for listening to his words. The others asked with interest if he had really learned to tell clones apart from regular people. Just as the guy began speaking, everyone's attention shifted to someone behind him. It was none other than a clone of Kion himself, identical but with no blood on his clothes. The people around him were confused. They started wondering who they should believe. One of these two? Kion felt like he was looking in a mirror. Wonder what the other players would decide. This was exactly why he wanted to meet his clone earlier, to avoid such a situation. But everything went off track due to the unpredictable situation with River. The main guy stared at his clone. The game had started. Who would win? Truth or lies? The players started freaking out, and Kion promised he'd handle the clones himself. But in this situation, who could they trust? They asked who the clones were, the ones already dead, and why there were no more of them. For now, there were 8 players left whose clones were either dead or just absent. If he revealed which ones he killed, the identities of the players would be established. In simple terms, this would prove Kion was a real person, but there was one big but. His clone, however, had the same exact information. They named different participants except for Jane and Leo. The other players didn't know how to react in this situation, not expecting this twist. Suddenly, the other Kion took control and started speaking. He mentioned Jane and Leo, who were with him on the first task, the ones he'd spent the most time with. How likely was it that he killed those 2 first and not someone else? After hearing this, people started questioning if his reasoning actually made sense. The clone kept talking. If Kion's words were true, didn't that mean he killed the real River? And who was River, anyway? He was a good leader, always supporting everyone, reminding them to stick together. It was hard to believe the archer just died on his own. Could they trust someone who killed a real person, no matter their reasons? It seemed like there was only one last step before he would win this game. The clone of Kion pointed at him and declared to everyone that he was the fake. Our hero seemed to have no chance. After learning of their leader's death, the players wasted no time and wanted to kill the guy. But Leo stopped them, saying if that clone was fake, then the red-haired one must be too. Only a few minutes left before disaster struck. That meant something had to be done. Kion stepped forward and told everyone the truth. He had killed River. But there was one fact no one had suspected until now. Because River was a psychopathic killer, and his death was a forced move. With those words, Kion swiftly attacked the archer, delivering a fatal wound, leaving no chance for defense. His clone thought Kion was attacking him. Liam said if the real Kion was a cold-blooded killer, then gathering them all here in one place worked in his favor. So, if the clone killed a player, he would reveal himself. That would not work in his favor. But if Kion could truly see them, killing the clone would prove he was the real one. But how could it be that the kind and sensitive River killed other players? The main character responded with a simple, ambiguous answer. Yes. River had hidden his devilish nature behind the mask of an angel. Upon hearing this, the girl with the bob cut, Mary, went mad. The archer had saved her during the first task. How dare anyone insult his honor? With a shout and fury in her eyes, she charged at Kion. In an instant, her face changed to shock. The scream vanished. An arrow was sticking out of her back, and it could only belong to one person. River had hit with extraordinary precision. The girl fell, meeting her death. Everyone was convinced by Kion's words. Only 12 players and 11 clones remained alive. The clone of the already dead archer revealed his true heart, a psychopath with a thirst for blood. But he didn't last long either. A deadly blow struck from behind. The clone vanished in an instant. In front of them appeared Dean, an 8th-level player from the military class, who apologized to Kion for his mistrust. After everything, people were convinced of who was the clone and who was the real player. Everyone decided to follow their true leader, Kion. All the emotions Kion was feeling seemed unfamiliar to him. In light of the situation, he decided to voice his suggestions on what to do next. At that moment, his clone realized there was no point in hiding his true nature and decided to start attacking. Could Kion win the battle against himself? After all, their strength and skills were identical. Could he outsmart his copy? A brutal battle began, and the main character knew how to help everyone else defeat their own clones. They needed to spend all their gold and boost their stats to increase their strength. And then the clones wouldn't be able to defeat them, because they had all become stronger than they were yesterday. A fierce battle broke out among them. After the mission was completed, everyone returned to the lobby with many casualties, and sorrow spread throughout the hall. If it weren't for the scoundrel River, maybe more players would have survived. Dean, he had it the hardest. He had been on the same team as the archer. The main character felt bad, too. He wanted to avoid having any more deaths. Maybe in the other towers, the situation was even worse. Not everyone could pass the task like Kion. Some would choose the path of the cold-blooded killer. Every subsequent battle would be even more brutal and difficult. But there must be a reason why it was clear. Why did our hero receive such a rare trait? Such a chance? There are those who still believe in him. Kion would do everything possible to save them from certain death. During these heavy thoughts, Dean approached him to thank him for saving his life. Despite his low level, he had done far more than others. He must have been given something special. Kion noticed that Dean's caution and prudence were impressive. In the future, he could be a reliable support. The man sincerely apologized to the main character for doubting his strength and ignoring him. Others began to echo his words, apologizing to Kion. From the other end of the hall, of course, Leo shouted that they should have jumped on his back from the start, just like he did. Dean publicly announced that he would like Kion to continue being the leader and lead them all to the top. Of course, the boy hadn't expected to gain trust so quickly, but he was pleasantly surprised and happy about it. The gold distribution based on everyone's work started. Surprisingly, even though no one killed real people except for Kion, of course, everyone got a certain amount of cash. The redhead, of course, bragged in his own special way about his hard-earned coins. The players listened to Kion, so they got a nice reward. Our hero got a big sum in his account, a whopping 12,500 gold. The system notified him that he earned 10,000 coins, and now there was an upgraded shop available to him. It turned out that to buy rare items, he needed to level up the shop. The main guy started carefully picking what to buy. After getting a skill upgrade for 5,000 gold, Kion improved his sword skills and, most importantly, reached level 3. Earlier, the guy had accidentally used a technique that wasn't his level. Now he could use it without any limits. Shopping was done, and as he looked at the other players, Kion transferred 200 gold to Jane, and by her look, it was clear she didn't expect such generosity. He explained that when they were fighting against kobolds and doppelgangers, the girl always helped him out. In a place where death can meet anyone, they could laugh and better rely on each other. Support and smile at those who are open with you. And all of this was thanks to Jane's healing powers and her empathetic nature. Those words motivated her, so the girl firmly decided to become stronger and leveled up her power to 2. On top of that, he sent 200 gold to Leo with the phrase, either he stops messing around and gets to work. The guy actually has potential. If he's re-educated right, he could become a decent person. This sycophant can be easily bought, so the redhead promised to do whatever Kion told him to. The next mission was announced, and it was time to check out the basic skills of level 3. The mission on the 3rd floor started at the base of a certain structure, called the Siege. The system notified that right here and now, they would meet players from other regions for the first time. Our group got the task to attack. They had 24 hours to capture the castle and altar. Penalty, unknown. In addition, each player got a temporary item, the Return Stone, an exclusive of this floor. Of course, people never stopped being surprised by the new tasks. Seeing the new info, the main guy figured out what his first step had to be. That's when he remembered Leo's words and his promise to do whatever our leader wanted. So the redhead, being a man of his word, went on a scouting mission by the guy's order. Isn't it too harsh to send him to his death when he trusted Kion? But the guy won't die, at least he'll keep living. Because the guide told the guy that this strange item, in case of death, would send them back to the starting position. Of course, Leo wouldn't want to go just like that. After completing the task, Kion would give him 100 gold. Getting to the entrance, it was time for the redhead to show what he was made of. He started smashing the entrance doors with all his strength. The strength of the gates was dropping more and more with each hit, until he completely shattered them. He had only 2 seconds to pass before they would regenerate. Archers were standing on top for defense. It was weird that they didn't attack as soon as Leo approached. At the foot of the altar, there were about 10 people, and on the altar itself there was 1, probably their leader. Kion warned him not to do anything stupid and not attack, or they would figure out the purpose of the stone. But Leo wasn't the type to listen to others, at least not everything they told him. As soon as the redhead charged, a bullet, similar to the stone he had, flew at him. The shot went straight to his face, leaving severe wounds, possibly even fatal. The man was holding his face and writhing in pain. He couldn't grasp the situation. What just happened to him? His vision started to blur and he began to turn back, but he noticed something. Was that a gun in her hands? Kion couldn't believe his ears. Was that really a real firearm? Leo swore it was true. But on this level, it was impossible to wield such a weapon. Even a level 9 soldier. Dean had nothing but knives. This is only possible if someone from that group chose the assassin path. That explains everything. Kion was also offered legendary weapons, unavailable to other players. It's going to be a tough and definitely brutal fight. To keep our leader from losing hope, Jane desperately cheered him on. All the other players supported her, saying they were also ready to follow him and win this task. This inspired the main guy. They were ready to begin the assault. Meanwhile, there was silence in the castle. Something horrible was happening. The heroes would soon find out who they were truly up against. Kion and his group started the assault, and our hero had gotten an incredibly useful item on the second floor. So he used his extraordinary senses and spotted the two archers Leo had mentioned. The redhead started taunting, betting that if they didn't attack then, they wouldn't now either. The guy could reveal the secret of the stone, but the main hero said that if he did, everyone would think he could regenerate. As expected, the archers released arrows this time, leaving no chance to escape, but the main guy was quicker and reacted much faster. The arrows were speeding toward Leo, right on target, but Kion sliced them clean in half right in the air. They didn't even get a chance to hit the man. The guy used the redhead as leverage, pushing off him, and flew up to the structure to deal with the archers instantly. Our hero attacked the two with a calm expression on his face. They definitely didn't expect such power from him. He inflicted heavy wounds, but not fatal ones. The archers would have a hard time fighting further. Our group had to attack with full force, so the enemies wouldn't understand what the return stone was for and what functions it served. After the main hero neutralized the danger from above, everyone else rushed to the entrance gates. Leo took on the task of destroying the doors, so he activated the stone fist of level 2, which was too much for his abilities. Jane quickly healed him. However, the redhead managed to destroy the door on the first try, with no chance of regeneration. Our hero was still up top when one of the archers said that it was pointless for him to be so merciful because he wouldn't win against her. Inside, they faced the same scene as Leo had before, a bunch of people and a woman with a pointed gun. From the atmosphere, it was clear she wasn't a leader. She was a tyrant. Her eyes showed cold mercilessness. Opening the guide, Kion saw that she was a level 13 assassin with a level 3 sniper skill. To get this far, she must have caused a real bloodbath on the second floor. Lifting her head, she aimed and shot without hesitation, right at our hero. The guy didn't expect this, so he couldn't react in time, and the bullet passed through his chest. After drinking a healing potion, he changed his opinion about this woman and admitted he had underestimated her. It was good that he had played it safe and bought leather armor, like a bulletproof vest, to protect against magical powers. If she was using such complex weapons, then she probably hadn't acquired an item to restore her mana yet. For every shot, she lost 10 mana. This meant she had 13 magic bullets left. The players attacked them with the mindset that they had to win. Our heroes were incredibly quick and strong, but it was tough going into close combat almost unarmed against bullets. How could they reach the altar if they were almost killed at the doorstep? What were the chances of making it there at all? But the participants had anticipated such a move, so they had also bought magical clothing. The other group stood and waited for orders from their leader, while she was the only one fighting. The bullets, while not killing with the first shot, drained their mana significantly. The only healer, Jane, stood behind, helping everyone by healing and restoring strength. When Kion saw that the other team's strength was growing, she sent her team into battle. In these circumstances, our heroes needed to reach the altar as quickly as possible. Maybe our players wouldn't have bothered the others, but they attacked out of fear of being killed by Kion. The main hero fought bravely against several enemies at once, giving none of them a chance to win. Probably, the woman noticed his strength and, without hesitation, shot him straight in the face. Liam saved the guy from death, quickly deflecting the attack with his sword. She definitely didn't like how the swordsman reacted to her shot, so she quickly took care of him, killing him so he wouldn't get in the way. Jane couldn't handle that many people at once. Many wounded were retreating. Kylie's shots were precise, so more and more people were dying. Of course, they would live anyway. But how could she kill with such a cold, empty expression? Maybe she even got some satisfaction from it, quenching her thirst for blood like river. The main hero activated his third-level beginner swordsman skill. With lightning speed, he dealt with the remaining participants around him, face to face with that crazy assassin. The mighty power of Kion against the level 13 assassin, a devastating battle began. Who would come out victorious? While our hero was fighting for the altar, Leo decided to handle everyone else his own way. Kayla was shook when Kion unleashed that kind of power at level 3. The guy just smirked and said her level 13 wasn't all that fair either. The altar had 3 spots, and to claim it, 3 players had to hold those positions. Our hero stepped onto one, kicking off the capture process. To clear the 3rd floor quest, he still needed 2 more people. But first he had to deal with this psycho. Kion dodged the bullets slick as hell. It was definitely meant for him. Then he struck back at Kayla so fast she didn't even see it coming. But she reacted in a flash, blocking the attack like a pro. She couldn't believe it. A low-level player like Kion had just parried her weapon. The main dude went for the final killer strike to end this whole mess. Kayla wasn't having it. Her stats were stacked too. She dodged his sword in a heartbeat. Mid-air, she fired off a few shots at him, but not a single one landed. None of the bullets even grazed him. He just stood there, unfazed. Who the hell taught him to read attacks like that? Liam was one of the strongest swordsmen in this zone, but before the tower, dude was actually a ping-pong prodigy. In table tennis, where a round's outcome is decided in mere seconds, keeping up with that fast-moving ball ain't easy. The more skilled the player, the better they read their opponent's gaze and predict the ball's trajectory. And Liam's nickname? The Prediction Genius. Thanks to him, Kion got a crucial tip that kept him alive. The main guy moved at lightning speed, charging straight at Kayla. He landed a devastating strike, but not a finishing one. It was so powerful that a single swing of his sword demolished a concrete structure. Reloading her weapon, Kayla realized sheer firepower wasn't gonna cut it here. The trio had wiped out all their enemies and was about to wrap up the mission before the dead started respawning. Hearing that, Kayla figured out the reverse stone's function, but at this point, it didn't even matter. Even if she tried some sneaky trick, Kion would tank it and keep going. Our hero decided to let her land a hit, then he'd finish her for real. But she didn't attack. Kayla might have been crazy, but she wasn't stupid. She leveled up her sniper skill to 4 instead. Everything played out exactly how the main dude expected. He let her take the shot. But did he manage to strike back and complete the mission? The system announced that the 3rd floor quest was complete. Turns out our team won this floor, but how the hell did that happen? Back at the altar, the main guy didn't expect the woman to actually pull the trigger, but she also had no clue he was about to stab his sword straight through her heart. Her last words before vanishing? Just his name. After that, the trio took their spots on the altar, and that was it. Victory. Suddenly, in the lobby, something like a double-sided mirror appeared, showing the hall of another group. The losers of this mission got hit with a disaster, one in the form of a massive monster. Its targets is every player who failed to take down even one opponent on the 3rd floor. Chaos broke out. People were screaming, crying, begging for help. It was pure horror. Kind-hearted Jane wanted to do something, anything to save them. But the second she tried stepping through that so-called mirror, it zapped her with electricity. The beast showed no mercy, and mangled bodies littered the ground. The scene unfolding before them was nightmare fuel, enough to make anyone's blood run cold. The last remaining player got stomped into the ground, leaving nothing but a gruesome red smear. Once the punishment ended, a voice echoed through the speakers that only one player survived. The groups will now be reorganized. Hearing this, Kion was in total shock because the only survivor was none other than that psycho Kayla. Judging by her face, she wasn't too thrilled about it either. But our main hero? He was absolutely losing his mind with rage. The next mission on the 4th floor was set in a wrecked city. The players got a heads up that in 6 hours a disaster was going to hit the city, and to survive, they'd have to hunt down monsters. This way, portals would pop up randomly generated for escape. Portals would show up randomly, 20 in total. You couldn't pass portals to anyone else. They've got 6 hours to figure it out. The players were totally vibing with the challenge. No competition, and they got to fight monsters. There were some rules, though, like you couldn't pass portals, and if one person opened multiple, someone might get stuck. 20 whole portals? Is this some kind of trap the tower set up? The players were all on the same page. As soon as a portal opened, they were bailing. Finally, they got the point of this mission, and our players became a real team. But there was still one problem. A new one no one saw coming. Kayla. She wasn't part of the crew, so she wasn't going to follow the group's plan. Without saying a word to anyone, she went off to handle the mission on her own. And that's how our players kicked off the task. Going back to when Kayla first showed up in the lobby, she made it clear who she was and that things weren't going to be easy with her around. Our players had all kinds of feelings about her: disrespect, shock, fear, anger. From the moment she stepped in, she already caused trouble, like when she beat Leo up. But Ayan reminded everyone that she was the newbie and would have no problem taking down another killer, just like she did with River. A sudden, unsettling feeling hit the main character, making him recoil from her. He got a notification from the guide. Kayla wanted him as her main target, definitely not in a romantic way. The woman turned around, and from the look on his face, she could tell he'd figured it out. Kayla knew Kion was a valuable player, and she was fully aware of it. First, we see Leo expertly smashing the orc's crooked green face. The redhead opened a portal on his first try. Lucky guy. The urge to hunt was stronger, so he decided to quietly keep moving. But on his way back, he ran into Kion, who probably saw this coming and didn't stray too far. The bulky guy started sweating and nervously trying to explain himself to the guy. The main character immediately guessed what Kion was up to and that he'd already opened a portal. So he shoved him back into the lobby. The guide updated after the psychopath made Kion her main target. The killer fully revealed his stats in Blood Day, and if she killed him then, she'd get a huge reward. Kion needed to prepare for that day because it was gonna be a brutal battle, and a lot of people would die. The orc attacked our hero, hoping for a quick kill, shouting something in its own language. Killing it in one swing of his sword, the guy scored some extra points. But the portal didn't open on the first try like it did with Leo. Monster hunting is possible if you have enough time, but not until everyone has opened their portals. Kion decided to focus on something else, keeping an eye on Kayla. She was probably already out there killing a bunch of monsters. Suddenly, he felt something that made him grimace. A horrible stench. The smell was like someone had died, and their body had been rotting here for weeks. The guide gave the guy a hint, saying orcs generally stink, but the smell of an orc that left a portal was especially awful. This poor soul, who only had a bad odor, was killed by Kion in a matter of seconds. A flickering portal gradually formed over the monster's body. After a long search, Kion finally found the girl. Without expecting it, he collapsed in front of her on one knee in a pleading gesture. The main character literally begged Kayla to let him live a little longer. She definitely wasn't expecting this kind of behavior from him, and it clearly threw her off. But the dude had a plan. If the chick was waiting for the Blood Day, then she had to keep him alive now and hand over her orcs. She'd be screwed if Kion didn't open the portal and bounce back, though he already popped one open, but she didn't need to know that. The other players weren't slacking either, opening portals too, only 5 left in play. Our guy cranked up his inner actor, hitting her with the full guilt trip special. Kayla barely held back the pain from his mind games, impatiently pushing him along. Taking down orcs, Kion felt both guilt and a rush of energy, like something familiar. Oh yeah, just like his thing with Kayla, she was always stressing over how to take him out. The hero hadn't opened a single portal, so he asked her how many she'd done to get a read on the sitch. Before he rolled up, she had already cracked open 5. That was a lot. If she did 5 Kion 1 and the rest of the players 11, that meant only 3 were left unopened. The moment that happened, boom. On the 4th floor, it'd be just the 2 of them, one-on-one. Time to split up. Kion threw in some dramatic panic. 10 minutes left till mission complete. Not much time to play with. Our guy said he'd find his own way out and was already taking off. But out of nowhere, Kayla stopped him. Dude started getting real irritated and jittery. Was she up to something? Something was off. She was definitely scheming. Did she change her mind about waiting for Judgment Day? Gonna off him right here? She rushed toward him. Was it to attack? Kion yanked out his sword, ready to defend himself. But nah. She just grabbed his hand and whispered that she forgot where her portals were. Hold up. Was that a blush on her cheeks? Okay, so she wasn't trying to kill him, but still, her whole vibe was sus to the guy. Kion and Kayla were the last ones back in the lobby. The players were waiting for him, not so much for her. Leo darted straight to his so-called bro, arms wide, ready to hug him and celebrate his return. But our guy? He straight up socked him in the face. And not just a tap, he hit him so hard the redhead went flying a few meters back, like what the hell got into him? Chill, Kion just got back from the mission, and Leo's sudden move kinda spooked him. Surprisingly, some of the players were actually happy to see Kayla. Jane and Liam, at least, were genuinely glad she made it back. The prophecy genius hit her with an offer. Let's be friends. Didn't matter how they first met, they were in the same boat now. She reacted the only way she knew how, by completely ignoring him. Leo, being real, said he'd rather she had died on that mission. Yeah, Kayla wasn't about to let that slide. A full-on verbal clash broke out between them. Watching it unfold, Kion thought maybe he should have left her there. But hey, a dead ally ain't much use. At least this way, she owed him one. Considering how dangerous she was, the hero knew he had to keep a constant eye on her and whatever she was plotting. Out of nowhere, a voice rang out, the last one anyone wanted to hear, the kind that only spelled trouble. And there he was, the familiar, smirking, pretty boy from the lower floor. Come. Dude barely got a word out before a bullet zipped right through his head. And guess who pulled the trigger? None other than Kayla. So turns out she wasn't a fan either. No one saw that coming, at least not that fast. Tough luck, but that wasn't enough to take him down. Dude regenerated like a damn rabbit. He knew Kayla, remembered her from the last zone. With one sharp move, the pretty boy slammed her straight into the wall, giving her zero chance to dodge. Took her down so easily, left her with some nasty wounds, but she didn't make a sound. Just shot him a glare full of pure hatred. But looking at his stats, he actually held back on her. Why? Was she important to the tower? Come told everyone to chill. He had just arrived after all. Barely any time had passed since the last mission, and yet the pretty boy was already announcing a new one. But before that, they needed to change the location. The rabbit snapped his fingers, and everything around them started to shift. A library appeared in front of them. But why? Are books gonna attack them? Each participant must choose just one book. If the players pick a useful book, they'll survive. If they choose a bad one, they'll die. Their fate depends on their choice. Sharing the contents with each other is forbidden. As soon as the mission starts on the 5th floor, the library will disappear. Cum wished everyone good luck surviving, and then he vanished. The participants didn't hesitate and immediately ran off to find useful books that could help them. People were rummaging through the shelves, searching for the right section. Of course, everyone was looking for literature that matched their class. Anything else was useless in this situation. Opening his guide, Kane couldn't believe his eyes. It wasn't recommending a book on martial arts or anything like that. His advice turned out to be just some basic romance novel that seemed like it didn't really matter. The guide had saved the main guy more than once, so he stuck with that book. No going back now. Holding on to the last bit of hope that you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, he started reading it. But nah, there were no martial arts teachings or potion recipes, just a cheap and simple pop fantasy plot. The other players went for something actually useful for survival. Liam grabbed the Hidong fencing book. Leo picked up a book with a loud title, Technique of the King of Fists. And Jane went for classic literature on medicine. Against them, Kion felt like a total loser. Dean used the book to set up a tent from scratch. Kylie was as stable as ever. She had this unstoppable urge to kill someone. This time, it was a doll in the shape of Cum. To avoid getting on her bad side, Kion decided to just leave her be. Time was up and they moved to the 5th floor. The place they were transported to turned out to be unexpected. A classroom. The tower always kept them guessing. The strangers sitting ahead of them were frozen in time, not giving any sign of life. Looking at each other, the participants noticed they had become younger. Had they really turned into immature teens? Kion looked around. Leo hadn't changed much, except for his hair getting a little longer. Jane still looked as cute and charming as her adult version. But as for the one sitting next to him, Kylie, yeah, she looked pretty different. But her aggression was still the same, and she wasn't even trying to hide it. A loudspeaker came on, announcing an important message. A familiar voice came through. It was Kum's cute voice, asking if everyone was happy with their rejuvenation. The mission, a role-playing game in a different dimension where humans and monsters coexist. From now on, they were cadets at the Monster Fighting Academy. Over the next 4 days, quests would pop up. If they failed, they'd be sent on a deadly mission. Kion had already survived a deadly mission once, but for a regular player, escaping death would be way harder. Given that, he probably shouldn't have picked up this romance novel, shouldn't have listened to the guide, and should have grabbed something useful instead. The task began, and the players were loaded with the necessary memories for the role play. Kion and the others started their mission in new roles. The process was painful. The injection of memories hit Kion's head like a ton of bricks. The main character's head feels like it's got 2 sets of memories like stacked on top of each other. These new ones taken from that novel the dude picked for himself. The quests will kick off after class, once he's got time to chill. Strangers around him started moving like they just woke up from a long freeze. If this is really the novel the guy was reading, then him and everyone else aren't just side characters, they're like totally irrelevant. The dude sitting ahead of him is the main character of the novella. Tywin? Not just a player in the story, but a regressor who knows what's coming. With that knowledge, he's in for a lot of game-changing encounters, gaining serious power in the process. The teacher running the class asks the students a question, and if anyone nails the answer, they get points for the shop. Regular cadets would never be able to answer that kind of question, but of course, Tywin's down to try. As soon as he raised his hand to answer, someone from the back drops the right answer. Our main dude gives a straight-up perfect answer, catching everyone's attention. The teacher notices him and straight-up praises his smarts, giving Kane some shop points. Everything starts clicking. Now the guy gets why the guide suggested that particular novel. Mastering fencing? Martial arts? Medical texts? Nah, none of that's needed here. The main character put together a clear, solid game plan. He's out to grab every opportunity that was supposed to go to Tywin. The evening at the academy started off pretty chill and peaceful. While walking around the courtyard, Leo asked how Kion knew what he was talking about, and Kion said it came from new memories. The redhead pointed out the luck of the main character. Yeah, he lied a little, but there was no way he was telling him the truth. Jane asked our guy when the quest would start since the classes were over. Based on what he read in the novel, the quest should start right now. And then each of the participants got a notification that the quest was starting. They had to clear the dungeon in 60 minutes. If they failed the task, it was a death mission. Kion knew the loot from the boss would be super useful later. Of course, by the book it should all go to Tywin, but our guy wasn't planning on giving it to him this time. The main character called everyone to follow him. Time was tight. They needed to hurry. As they entered the dungeon, they ran into Tywin, who was totally stunned to see these cadets. Right from the entrance, Kion started smashing the ugly monsters. With one swift and precise strike, he sliced the creature in half. Tywin asked how they managed to get in here, and our guy arrogantly replied that not only him gets to do whatever he wants. In the regressor's mind, thoughts were spinning, thinking how weird and out of place this whole thing was. Even if you disregard how they found this place, regular cadets couldn't be this powerful. Especially these two, our main guy Kion and the ultimate psycho Kayla. No way he'd forget such badass people. Tywin knew straight up that if he didn't make a move, everything that was supposed to be his would get snatched right from under his nose. The dude launched his magic spear with some serious force, grabbing the attention of the other players. At the same time, he wiped out a few monsters, leaving massive holes right through them. Then, like a total flex, the spear boomeranged right back into his hand. He wrecked those beasts without even moving a step, just stood there proving he had some real game. Naturally, everyone around locked onto him, eyes full of awe. I mean, what else do you expect? Even Kion was standing there, straight up mesmerized. The main character is the main character, after all. That's when the dude realized Tywin wasn't about to just hand over the reward, he was ready to throw down for it. In just 12 minutes, over half the monsters were wiped out. The players were moving at a crazy pace. If our boy wanted to snag the grand prize, he had to take down as many freaks as possible. No doubt Tywin was a tough opponent, but what he didn't know, Kion was a beast when it came to monster hunting. Kayla watched the whole spectacle, thinking back to their last mission. She realized the dude had played her like a damn fool. Moving at lightning speed, the main guy was tearing through orcs, his silhouette practically blurred as he zipped around. His strikes? Absolutely brutal, deadly. He didn't even give them a damn chance to fight back, let alone run. But this girl? Yeah. This time she wasn't about to go easy on anyone. She took on a whole squad of monsters herself. With insane precision, she was putting bullets in everything that crossed her path. But there were way too many orcs, making it tough to dodge every single hit. Not that it mattered. Kayla handled it like a pro, slipping past attacks just as effortlessly. Meanwhile, a swarm of beasts closed in on Tywin, but dude stayed silent and took them all out in one savage sweep of his spear. No emotions. Nothing. Like he'd done this a million times before. The other players stood back, watching this insane, jaw-dropping showdown. While Liam stood there looking almost love-struck, Jane noticed something. Our guy was fighting way harder than usual. They figured Kion probably just didn't want them all walking straight into a death trap. That kind of realization would hit anyone in the feels. Honestly, they all felt a little guilty for voting against him before. Liam was especially moved by all of this. It only fired him up even more. A battle cry rang out. To show their gratitude to their leader, they were gonna fight even harder. Finally, they wiped out all the orcs, and the dungeon boss room appeared. It was time to pick someone to summon the boss. Would Kion get his shot? He'd been fighting his heart out for this moment. But nah, they went with the classic choice, the so-called main guy of this story, Tywin. Seriously? Our dude went all out and he still didn't get picked? What was he supposed to do now? One thing was certain, giving up wasn't an option. Just as the regressor was about to step inside, Kion called out to him, asking for the chance to take this fight himself. Tywin wasn't expecting that. He was probably ready to just shut it down and not even listen. But Kion knew exactly how to get his attention. He said he'd share the secret to breaking the regression chain. From the very first second he learned about this apocalypse, Kion never backed down. And he sure as hell wasn't about to start now. Swinging open the massive gates, our guy stepped inside, straight to the boss monster. He was ready to fight, but was the battle really about to start? Tywin, standing nearby, just couldn't shake the thought. Who was this guy, and who the hell did he think he was? And most importantly, how did he know his secret, that he was a regressor? A spear pressed dangerously against Kion's neck, Tywin's way of warning him that he better spill the truth. And then our guy dropped another bomb. He knew about the regressor's 32-year winter. Kion started explaining exactly what he knew about him back in November of that 17th year. The two of them, with some other guy, stood there, sipping wine, staring out the window and talking. That guy envied Tywin. His life never really ended, looping endlessly through those golden years from 17 to 32. But for the regressor himself, it wasn't a blessing, it was a curse. He was sick of reliving the same thing over and over. Kion said he'd tell him how to break the chain of endless cycles, but in return, Tywin had to give up the boss room. Unreal. Tywin had dreamed of this for thousands of years, and he had no choice but to accept the deal. He backed off from the boss fight, letting our guy take his place, but if Kion didn't hold up his end, it wouldn't end well. Stepping into the room, he came face to face with the dungeon's final monster. Yeah, this thing definitely earned its title. The beast looked powerful, strong, and ready to put up one hell of a fight. Kion steadied himself. Even though the novel didn't lay out a step-by-step battle plan, he knew exactly what to do. First strategy, the warrior orcs roar. Most attackers lose their fighting spirit after that. But Kion's absolute senses didn't just enhance his perception, they could completely block stuff like that too. So that whole mental sound attack? Yeah, it didn't do a damn thing to him. He already knew the orc's second strategy. Its upper body, the part most people attack, was pure steel. But the lower body? That was its Achilles heel. With one precise swing, Kion struck right at it. The fight was brutal. The beast sliced the boy clean in half like he was just a piece of meat. But somehow our guy survived. What the hell was that? A hologram. He didn't waste time worrying about his upper limbs. His full focus was on the lower half. With insane accuracy and lightning speed, he delivered devastating blows. And in the end, he cut them off completely. The monster collapsed in defeat. It knew this was the end. Kion finished it off with a final fatal strike, winning the challenge. The warrior orc boss's chamber was cleared. From its lifeless body, an interesting item dropped. That evening, Leo and Kion sat playing rock, paper, scissors for money. The redhead kept losing over and over, starting to suspect the guy was cheating. But let's be real, how do you even cheat at this game? Jane backed Kion up, saying she saw him win fair and square. Besides the gold he won in this game, he also scored something else today. In this novel, there were only two mythical items. Tywin's weapon, the magic spear Gungnir, a trick weapon that never missed its target no matter what, and the Nike ring, which massively boosted the luck of whoever had the honor of wearing it. Pretty simple, really. It was just as much of a cheat item as Gungnir. For the main character, this would be the ultimate insurance policy in the near future. That meant Tywin would have to move forward without the ring, but Kion still planned to share some key information with him. After everything that had happened, this was all he really wanted. Suddenly, someone sat down next to our guy. Of course, it was none other than our favorite assassin, Kayla. She wanted to play too. Rock, paper, scissors wasn't just about luck, it was a way to test reflexes. With Leo, they were just playing for fun, but Kayla? She put down 3,000 gold. Kayon's sensitivity stats were maxed out at 50, so he was willing to risk it. He raised the bet to 5,000 gold. The game was on. The next day at the Monster Fighting Academy began. All the cadets, including our players, stood at the morning assembly. Kion instantly recognized it. The most obvious overused scene in every pop novel. Smashing the machine to publicly measure combat power. Oh, and if you were wondering, yeah, Kion won his 5,000 gold. Not exactly shocking. One of the Academy's instructors announced that in 2 days, they'd be testing everyone's magic level, something they'd need for their upcoming mission. Liam, standing behind Kion, was absolutely hyped. He couldn't wait to watch the other cadets struggle. The first candidate stepped up to take a swing. With his first hit, he scored a 43. No one really knew the exact grading scale, but judging by everyone's reaction, that was solid. Kion should have known this info, but for some reason it wasn't in his downloaded memories. Next up, Liam. He stepped forward and landed a 69. Every cadet in the academy, except for our players, stood there with their jaws on the floor. With all eyes on Liam, Leo immediately stepped up, clearly aiming to outdo him. And he did, landing a 75 barehanded, no weapons. But not everyone was a fan of public flexing. A force wave shot him back from the impact on the stone. The attack belonged to none other than Kayla. Her shot, a clean 98. With every new cadet stepping up, the numbers kept climbing, and the crowd was losing their minds. Kion stood there watching, low-key proud of how much stronger his crew was compared to the other cadets. Then Tywin stepped up, calm, calculated, like he'd done this a million times before. He hit a solid 115, didn't even blink, and just walked away. At lunch, Leo turned to the main guy and asked why he held back, barely even trying. If Kion had gone all out, he would have been grouped with Tywin, and that would have made winning way harder. Mid-conversation, an unexpected notification popped up for everyone. A new quest had begun. The mission? Save Tywin. Time limit? 1 hour. But wait, wasn't he strong enough to save himself? A quest was a quest, though, and time was running out. Kion wasn't expecting this, but he already knew why and how Tywin ended up in trouble. After returning, the regressor had wrecked all the local school bullies. But one of them just happened to be the only son of Robert, the head of Red Moon, one of the top 10 guilds. So naturally, Robert sent his best men to hunt Tywin down and make sure he didn't walk away alive. In the novel, someone saves him, but only because of the Ring of Luck. But since that ring now belongs to our main guy, everything depends on the players completing the mission and saving the regressor. If someone as strong as Tywin couldn't handle this alone, yeah, things were looking real bad. To win this fight, they'd have to step it up. These enemies weren't the kind you beat with basic moves. No matter how much experience Tywin had, at the end of the day, he was just a cadet. It was up to them to get him out alive. Meanwhile, the enemy had already started roughing him up, talking all smug like, "How dare he touch that kid? The audacity." And then, bam, a bullet tore through one of them. They definitely weren't expecting an ambush. Kayla didn't waste time. There wasn't much of it anyway, so she went in first. Leo wasn't exactly her biggest fan, but he respected the boldness, took it as his cue to attack too. Kion had maybe wanted to come up with a plan first, watch their movements, not just charge in. But what was done, so he signaled the official start of the fight. If there was one thing these guys weren't expecting, it was a freaking gun. I mean, where would an academy cadet even get one? There were only 3 enemies, but their power was undeniable. Their only real advantage? The element of surprise. Just like Kayla did with her gunshot. And Tywin, seizing the moment, reacted instantly. He joined the fight alongside the rest of the players. Sure, Robert's men hadn't expected this, but that's what made them the best. They adjusted in seconds. So now, Tywin and Kion were fighting shoulder to shoulder with the others, facing 3 of the deadliest assassins from one of the most powerful guilds. Tywin kept getting more and more surprised by these newcomers, struggling to wrap his head around why they were even here. Kion just told him to focus on the fight. Answers would come later. The redhead decided to take one of the men on solo. He activated his second-tier stone fist and sent it flying straight at the guy's face. But the man had a magic barrier. It flung Leo back several meters at breakneck speed. Yeah, they all knew their enemies weren't just regular fighters, but this level of defense? Untouchable. Their frustration only grew, fueling each strike with even more intensity. One of these 3 just showed the bare minimum they could pull off. They thought these cadets had no clue about the brutal world outside the academy, But our players weren't just some kids either. Those three charged in, ready to wipe out every single one of them, kids or not. Everyone went at each other. Some had orders to take them out so the boss wouldn't lose it. Others just needed to complete the quest. While they held them off, Kayla, on Kion's orders, covered the rear, not without some grumbling about the commands, of course. The wounded fell back, Jane patched them up, and they jumped right back into the fight. Tywin was straight up shocked at how fast their wounds healed, and even more at what these cadets could actually do. Kion got a first-hand taste of how strong the enemies were, but come on, no way they'd be sent on a mission they couldn't complete. This was the perfect time to pull out skills straight from the books. Liam unlocked his sword-fighting mastery. Leo wasted no time putting his stone fist technique to use. Off to the side, Dean set up a tent, probably for post-battle rest or something. The men had no clue what the hell they were saying or why they were even doing all this. But that trio, they weren't just some randoms either. They powered up their magical abilities and fused them into one. The result? A massive, earth-shaking explosion right in the middle of the battlefield. It hit our team hard, but luckily no one got fatally wrecked. After the explosion, Kion realized, no way they were winning this with just a basic battle plan. The main guy and his crew? They were unstoppable, but only when they moved as one. But those three men? Their experience was on a whole other level, definitely higher. Together, they formed a trinity. Take out even one link, and the whole thing crumbles. But how? They were like steel doors, no handles, no lock, not even a damn crack to slip through. The explosion hit our team hard, but Jane was on her A-game, healing them up like a pro. The brunette dude noticed how relentless these cadets were. If they were hunters, the whole country would be safe. The blonde guy, though? He just wanted this over with. If it dragged on, they'd be the ones in trouble. But their leader? He was straight up losing it. How the hell were these kids still alive? He shot forward, ready to land a fatal blow on at least one of them. His target? Jane, the healer, the one keeping them all in the fight. Kion wasn't fast enough to intercept, but Tywin's spear? That would make it. The regressor hurled it straight at him, knowing damn well that Gungnir never missed. The guy never saw it coming. Especially not from Tywin. He actually thought he was done for. Just like that, one link was down. Their formation? Shattered. Vulnerabilities? Wide open. A crack finally formed in those steel, unbreakable gates. Time to strike. After that, the leader of the trio was dead set on beating them all to death. Kion could feel it, their impatience. They were uneasy about this unexpected delay. And he knew exactly why. Thanks to the book, he had all the intel on them. Just as the three were prepping for a massive attack, something pretty damn interesting interrupted them. The words of our main guy. Something about their boss, Robert. That must have sent them into a rage. He caught their attention by casually dropping that he knew exactly who Robert was. The head of the Red Moon, a dude with no self-control. They had no clue how some rookie cadet knew that kind of classified info, especially about their boss. With every word, he pried those steel gates open even further. Countless subordinates had died because of Robert's recklessness and fiery temper. Those words shook them, made them hesitate, and that hesitation sealed their fate. The gates burst wide open, the signal for our three strongest cadets to strike. Tywin showed no mercy, driving his spear straight through one of them. Kayla fired off a few shots, bullets hitting the leader square in the chest. The final blow was Kion's, delivering the killing strike to finish him off. Saying these two were shook would be an understatement. Their buddy was straight up knocked out lying on the ground. Honestly, they just stood there like they had no clue what to do next, or if it even made sense to do anything at all. Then, out of nowhere, one of the guys just started laughing, like full-on psycho mode. But our players, they didn't even flinch. They were locked in, ready to keep throwing hands till the very end. But then those guys? They just put their weapons away. Was that supposed to be some kind of peace offering? One dude grabbed his unconscious friend, saying their boss would be pissed, but he didn't regret a damn thing. His partner scooped up the injured guy from the other side and backed him up, saying they saw real hunters, the future of Korea. The trio wished our heroes good luck and dipped. The players saved Tywin, which meant they won the quest. Everyone, even the regressor, was hyped, and they were this close to losing, only 2 minutes left on the clock. Tywin wasn't about to sit around waiting. He straight up asked the guy if he knew what was gonna go down today. Like, seriously? Couldn't even let the main dude catch his breath? Maybe a quick thanks first? Instead, the guy started messing around like a little kid, begging for some appreciation. Right now, after all this time, Tywin's life was seeing more change than ever before. Nothing like this had ever happened in his past regressions. He even genuinely said, "Thank you." Kion warned that this regression was going to be tougher than all the previous ones. Then he was already about to bounce. Out of nowhere, Tywin asked if he was a regressor too. Like, how else would he know all these details? No way this was just some crazy coincidence. But nah, the main dude wasn't connected to this regression or any others. He was different. The guy straight up flexed, saying he was something way better and more advanced than Tywin could even imagine. He was already walking away, but the regressor reminded him. He promised to spill how to break this endless cycle. Day 3 rolled in. The instructor started announcing the team lineups for tomorrow's dungeon training. The system revealed Kion's new armor, rare with some solid defense stats called the Tay armor. Earlier, Tywin had given our guy this armor, thinking he saw things differently from everyone else. Team 4 was made up of Den, Bree, and Duke, with our regressor leading the squad. And thanks to the Nike ring, Kion landed in the best team. Luck really is a game changer. To score the reward, he had to be in the same squad as Tywin, but it was way too early to start celebrating. Night fell before the final day of their stay at the academy. The main character of the novel asked our guy if he knew that things in the dungeon were going to go sideways from the very start. Disasters happening weren't anything new, but for them to all hit at once, that was straight up nonsense. Every time he fought, but no matter what, he could never figure out the reason behind it. Tywin pushed him to spill. He was more than just a regressor. He had to know something. According to the novel's plot, 3 teams would suffer accidents. The only squad that barely made it out alive? Tywin's team, and even that took everything they had. The weirdest part? No reason was ever given for it, no clues, no explanations, nothing in the novel. Kion apologized, saying he didn't know why it happened, but our guy? He was ready to shake the answers out of him. Like how, though? He knew everything. Even if the events were already set in stone, shouldn't they at least try to change things? But nah, our hero really didn't know. The author never dropped any hints, and the ending, totally vague. So now what? Nearby, Kayla was passing by when she heard voices. Curious, she decided to eavesdrop and see what was going on. And what did she walk in on? A very questionable scene. 2 guys gripping each other's shirts, practically half undressing. Calling it awkward would be an understatement. For Kayla, who just became an accidental witness, and for the guys because, well, someone could easily get the wrong idea. Either way, she decided to quietly dip before things got any weirder, though those 2 had already started scrambling to explain themselves. The next day, Kion's group stood in front of the portal, gearing up for their mission as the instructor announced the start of training. The whole squad stepped inside. Their task was to clear out the training dungeon. The main guy had enough on his plate dealing with the whole disaster situation, and now Kayla was here too? She was already a handful before, but now, straight up impossible. The team had to split up and scout the dungeon. If anyone found something interesting, they had to report it through the communicators they were given. Kion went off on his own, checking out the area. The disasters were set to hit the 4th, 9th, and 12th teams. 4th, that was where our guy and Tywin were. 9th had Jane and Kayla. They'd be fine. There was a healer in their squad. And no way in hell was our favorite psycho, the tower's little terror, dying on the 5th floor. But the 12th team? Yeah, that was a problem. That reckless idiot Leo was in there, and if anyone was in real danger, it was them. As he moved forward, he heard something dangerous stomping in the dark, a low, menacing growl, and whatever it wasn't alone. A few monsters stepped into view, and from the look on their faces, they had one goal: rip his throat out. Kion gripped his sword, fully ready to throw down, but then he felt something behind him. Another monster? Nope. Behind him, cowering, was Den, completely defenseless, tears streaming down his face as he kept apologizing. Kid was only 17, with 0 experience. Our guy had no clue what he was apologizing for, or why he was even crying in the first place. Within minutes, every last monster was lying dead on the ground. For Kion, this fight was way too easy. Meanwhile, Den was still stuck in the past, remembering the day everyone turned on Kion and sent him to his death. He kept apologizing over and over. He never had the guts to say it before, but in his mind, he should have said it a long time ago. tears streaming down his face, the kid just wouldn't stop asking for forgiveness. He had such a soft heart. There was no way he'd make it far in the tower like that. Kion grabbed him by the shoulders, telling him there was nothing to apologize for, and if the same situation happened again, he should do exactly the same thing. Den couldn't believe what he was hearing. Was Kion seriously telling him to pick someone to die again? Any of them could die at any moment, but with that kind of attitude, Den had zero chance of survival. Kion snapped, yelling at him. If he wanted to make it, he had to start putting himself first, instead of worrying about everyone else. But then, out of nowhere, Kion's expression softened, and the anger disappeared. He ruffled the kid's hair, calming him down. "You did the right thing," he said. "Stop beating yourself up over it." The rest of the way, Den just stared at Kion in awe, thinking how damn cool this guy was. Finally, he asked, "Was Kion always this badass, even before the apocalypse?" But before all this, he was just a kid in an orphanage, surviving, not living, fighting off discrimination however he could. By the time he hit 20, he was just another office drone, barely scraping by. Then he met that little monster on the street, and something inside him changed. The tower changed. He became different. Honestly, if it weren't for that pill he swallowed right before the apocalypse, who knows if he would have even made it? And really, who was he to be giving life lessons to anyone? Den pointed out the obvious. Kion kept telling him to put himself first, but wasn't Kion always throwing himself into danger to protect everyone else? The kid straight up said he wanted to be like Kion, to help people, no strings attached. That's when Kion remembered. The future was what mattered. No point in looking back. They stopped in front of a strange wall, and Den started checking it out. Being a researcher class, he could tell. This thing was giving off some weird energy. Kion's absolute sense didn't pick up anything at first, but thanks to Den's skills, he finally felt it. Without hesitation, he told Den to step back and pulled out his weapon. Channeling his beginner fencing Lavore 3 skill, he struck the wall with everything he had. And just like that, it cracked wide open, unleashing some kind of wild, powerful energy. Our heroes got teleported right into the middle of this place, and the system buzzed saying they entered the maze. The novel didn't mention a word about a maze, and Tywin didn't say anything about it either. The only option left is that this place wasn't created by the author of the novel. Maybe they'll figure out the root of the dungeon problem. As they moved forward, the guys noticed some creature that looked like a monster, but what set it apart was that it could talk. Kion wanted to check its stats, and Jemba turned out to be an elf with the job of repairing and creating stuff. In other words, a builder. This creature's size was so massive it was at least 5 times taller than Kion. Even worse for our heroes, this monster wasn't alone. Its buddies were just as powerful as it was. But Jemba was about to chase the guys off when his buddy Cum said that they didn't look like characters from the novel. He especially pointed at Kion, saying they changed the plot and dropped a huge spoiler for Tywin. All these high-level monsters gathered around Kion and started deciding his fate, and the guy freaked out. Well, or maybe he just got super awkward from all the attention. Especially from the attention to his lower half, but of course, elves are short, so it couldn't be anything else. The mini-monsters asked where he came from, and he said he ended up here by accident just from reading this story. Honestly, it's such nonsense that no one would believe it, but it's kinda true. Kion asked them in return, and they said they were just trying to patch up the holes in this crappy novel. For the first time, the main character didn't run into bloodthirsty monsters, killers, or boss monsters, but just regular elf workers. The guy didn't freeze up and immediately figured out how to deal with them. He started buttering them up. He praised their work and said that without them, this novel would be total trash. The elves bloomed hearing that, glad someone noticed their effort. Jemba got all emotional. At first he wanted to kill the hero, but now he was just gonna wipe his memory and let him go. The mini-monster was already raising his hand toward his face, but if the memories vanished, what was the point of all this? Time was running out. Kion had to come up with something fast. So he said there's a mistake on the 3rd level of the dungeon, a huge plot hole, and asked if they already knew how to fix it. The elves were shook. How could a regular guy know that? Even if this novel is trash, there's still something to learn from it. The guy jumped in, saying he'd tell them how to fix it. The mini-monsters sent the 2 of them back safe and sound. The hole closed. Den got worried about Kion because he was just standing there, staring at one spot. Did they, torture him or what? But the guy wasn't reacting to the kid at all. He was still lost in his thoughts, still processing everything. Let's go back to when Kion offered the elf his help. There was no way he could refuse it. How could he? If this mistake didn't get fixed, the builder's reputation would take a serious hit. Kion started explaining his idea. If they merged the 3 dungeons, where different teams were currently stuck, into one, the dwarves mulled it over. If they combined the dungeons, then the monster situation would actually become kinda manageable. They agreed it was a solid idea, but in that case, if the dungeons became that huge, then the rewards had to match. They explained that it was just a basic cause and effect rule, something that couldn't be broken. On the flip side, if Tywin got too big of a reward, the plot could shift way too much. Kion boldly shot back that maybe he'd win and take the reward for himself. The main guy did everything he could. Now it was up to the elves and the luck from Nike's ring. And then the builder straight up said that maybe it'd be easier to just wipe his memory. This side character was getting way too full of himself. Well, Nike didn't just not try, he didn't even bother. Kion was about to get his memory wiped. Right after that, Den was practically shaking him, trying to get any kind of reaction out of him. Poor Kion barely managed to mumble that he was fine and didn't need any more rescuing. The kid kept apologizing over and over. He just got scared. I mean, of course. Kion was standing there like he actually just got his memory erased. Lucky for them, the mission on the 5th floor had a time limit. The truth, Kion remembered everything. At the last second, he yelled that he was disappearing tomorrow anyway, so there was no point in wiping the memory of someone who wouldn't be here long. As they kept walking, he noticed a hammer on Den's back, one that definitely wasn't there before. The kid admitted that while the elves were focused on Kion, he swiped it real quick. The hammer only lasts for a day, but it can repair anything and boosts the success rate of item upgrades. Den said he actually tried fixing him with it, and that's when Kion realized maybe he wasn't as weak as he thought. Either way, he had made a deal with the elves, and that's when a hidden quest popped up just for him. He had to patch up this hole in the novel, and in return he'd get a personal reward, but he had to do it in secret. Suddenly, the ground beneath them started shaking, rocks crumbled from the ceiling, and a loud rumble echoed through the dungeon. That's when Kion knew it had begun. A system message popped up. Unknown energy detected, the dungeon was pissed, stronger monsters had spawned, and the last thing? All 3 dungeons just merged into one. The kids started freaking out over everything happening around them, but our hero stayed ice cold. He told the kid they were splitting up. Den needed to find Tywin and stick with him. He's a scout. He'd figure it out. Kion reassured him, saying he could handle this. He was way stronger than he even realized. But Den wasn't worried about himself. He was worried about his friend. What was going to happen to him? How would he manage alone? But no one can know that ahead of time. The story would decide. The new monsters were nothing like the old ones. These things even looked way stronger. The cadets could barely fight against the poison-spitting monsters. Clearly, they weren't as tough as actual warriors. Jane stood at the back, healing the wounded. One of them turned around to thank her, just as a stinger shot toward him, a guaranteed kill. If the beast hadn't suddenly collapsed. And no, it didn't just trip, the thing was dead. And that was all thanks to our girl with the gun, the one who never misses. Kion kept walking, slaying monsters along the way when he heard gunfire. That had to be Kayla's team. The main guy rushed toward them. Yeah, they had an advantage over the other cadets, but still. His only goal was to wipe these creatures out while staying unseen. No messing with the plot. The fight was going to be brutal, no doubt. The monsters were insanely strong, but so were our players. Our hero steps into the tunnel, heading straight toward the strongest of all the scorpion monsters, the final boss. Standing before him was the Scorpion King, a massive beast at least 10 times his size, with venom dripping from its stinger. Fighting a monster this powerful was already tough, but the fact that it spat poison made it even worse. There was no way Kion could attack it head-on without taking some serious damage. Team 4 had their regressor, Tywin. He'd save them. But Kion? He had to help the other 2 groups. Yeah, sure, he was doing it to rank up, but also, he actually wanted to help. He couldn't just stand by and let this disaster wipe everyone out. He dodged the scorpion's poisonous attacks at lightning speed. The hero leaped into the air, ready to land a devastating blow. But he forgot one thing. The beast had another weapon, its razor-sharp, deadly tail. Kion crashed hard onto the ground, the impact cracking the stone beneath him. That had to hurt. The monster, emotionless as it was, seemed pleased. It had almost killed him. No, this wasn't it. If he kept fighting like this, he was just serving himself up on a silver platter. He needed a real plan. And he had one. He didn't want to use it this soon, but there was no other choice. The night before, their instructor had given the class a challenge. Completing it earned them a one-time perfect shield. Kion lunged in for the final attack. Either this worked, or he'd fail every quest tied to this dungeon. The second that freak started spitting venom, the main dude popped his perfect shield in response. This thing's insane. It straight up blocks everything. No matter how hard that creature tried, it couldn't even scratch Kion. Rushing in with all he's got, our guy flexes his rookie swordsman skills and straight up one-shots the beast. The scorpion boss? Toast. And with it, the massive threat hanging over Kayla's crew. Kion steps through the portal, ready to back up Redhead Leo's team. Dude didn't even realize he was thinking about him, but low-key, he actually started worrying about that big guy. Their first impression of each other? Way different. He definitely didn't see this dynamic coming. No matter how much he hated to admit it, the hero actually cared about this cocky bastard. Nah, it's just some weird sense of duty, that's all. But lost in thought, he totally missed how empty everything around him was. And boom, right in front of him, some weird-ass thing just bursts out of the ground. This tiny freak wasn't even that strong, just a damn horned mole. Kion wastes no time, takes the nasty thing out on the spot. Sure, it wasn't tough, but what's the point if there's nothing to save Leo's squad from? Well, there were dozens of these little creeps. Like, literally, a whole swarm of tiny, ugly monsters coming at them all at once. They're small, fast as hell, and if Kion doesn't focus up, he's in for a real bad time. The hero just hoped Leo was still kicking and holding his ground with everything he's got. He still had the strength, but Redhead was this close to losing his patience. He was going off, attacking with pure rage. Dude's emotions were boiling over, and it showed all over his face. These nasty little freaks didn't even get a chance to crawl out of their burrows before Leo was slicing them up underground. But with every kill, he was burning out fast, so much so that he didn't notice one of them creeping up behind him. And then, bam, thing lunges, horn first, straight for his back. Or almost lunges? 'Cause Kion took it out first, skewering it on his sword like a damn marshmallow. Leo was beyond hyped to see his buddy still kicking, almost untouched, just a little roughed up. The hero was relieved Leo made it, but the rest, yeah, they weren't so lucky. The guy kept apologizing, feeling like he failed to save everyone from those disgusting moles. Even if they were just side characters in this story, they were real people who once had lives. Redhead turned to Kion, asking what the hell they do now. Was there any way out of this mess? Then the ground beneath them shook, the whole place trembling. What now? Another damn earthquake? But Kion didn't even flinch. He already knew what was coming, and he was ready. Mind, body, everything. He was gonna beat this quest, save as many people as he could, and to do that, he had to take down the dungeon's second boss. The next day, the head of the academy sent out his deepest condolences about the whole mess that went down in the dungeons. No amount of compensation could ever patch up the pain of losing someone that close, a family member. Kion and Tywin were strolling down the street after the speech when our guy turned to him and apologized for not being able to save everyone. Tywin reassured him. Despite all the resets, the novel's protagonist still couldn't stop the killings in the dungeon. But hey, at least our hero managed to save way more people this time on his own. Tywin admitted it. Kion was way more than just some regressor. The regressor said he'd be hitting up the protagonist from time to time for advice. Too bad that's never actually gonna happen. Tomorrow's Kion won't be the same guy as today, because they're heading back to their tower. Just like Tywin, at 32, is nearing the end of the novel, our guy is about to step up to the next floor of the tower. The ending's already set. Kion's gonna make it to the top, but what's waiting for him up there? Nah, he's not just gonna sit around and wait for things to play out. He and his crew are gonna carve out their own happy ending. Our squad nailed all the quests, so they're already heading back to the lobby. While the team was chatting about the last mission, hyping each other up for the solid work, Kion was just kicking back, soaking in his rewards. Dude just unlocked level 1 in intermediate swordsmanship. But that ain't all, since he rightfully secured first place across the board, the reward for the secret mission, an extra subclass slot. The protagonist never thought he'd be juggling multiple jobs at once. But in this case, he was actually cool with the side gig. He crushed the item in his hand, locking in a new class. Wonder what it's gonna be. Obviously something insanely badass. Kion deserves something absolutely overpowered, right? The guy was practically vibrating with impatience. Why the hell was the system taking so long to load this time? And his second class? The all-powerful, unstoppable, legendary Unbeast Tamer. Yeah, at first, the dude thought it sounded, well, kinda dumb. Like, what was this? He ain't some Disney princess. But then something clicked in his head. Way back, before the whole apocalypse mess, our guy was just heading home from work like any other day. On his way, this tiny stray kitten started following him around. He couldn't take it home, though. The little furball looked up at him with those big, sad eyes. Nowhere to go. Totally alone. But Kion just couldn't afford a pet. So he ran, didn't look back, left that helpless little thing out there by itself. Back then, he was drowning in money problems, had no choice but to ignore the cat. But now he's a freaking beast tamer. Maybe this job ain't so bad after all. And besides, Kion's always had a soft spot for animals. The guide sent him a strategy manual. Damn, it's been a while since we saw that thing. Kinda missed it. There's a monster on the 7th floor that can be tamed. Not only does it have killer combat skills, but it's strong and tough enough to carry Kion on its back. A battle-ready beast that doubles as a mount? Maybe some kind of wolf-like creature? Kion was seriously hyped. He was finally getting a pet. For the first time ever, he couldn't wait for the next mission. But thinking they'd reach the 7th floor fast? Yeah, that was a brutal, fatal mistake. Because the 6th floor mission? A never-ending battle. Literally. The monsters just kept coming. Everyone was fighting at full throttle. Hell, maybe even beyond their limits. And that's how they managed to tear through every damn monster around them. Everyone had their own way of handling things. What mattered was that it worked. Kion had already lost count of how many creatures he'd killed, slashed, or straight-up wrecked. Each one was different. Size, strength, level. It didn't matter. He took down every single one. But because this fight had no end, it was exhausting as hell. Probably the only one actually enjoying this was Leo. I mean, come on, an endless battle where he keeps winning, plus free EXP? Makes sense. There was no leveling up on the 5th floor, so now the redhead was milking this for all it was worth. Leo casually pointed out that our guy had already hit level 5. But leveling up didn't mean much to him. What really mattered was that all his stats had already maxed out. Because of that, until he broke through his limits with training, boosting stats with gold or levels was basically pointless. Man, those were the good old days back on the 5th floor. No grinding, no training, just free loot dropping left and right. Not far off, gunshots rang out, which meant Kayla was close. That psycho didn't have any stat limits. The sheer unfairness of it pissed the protagonist off. The killer noticed the way he was glaring at her, practically fuming. So, yeah, he decided to just stay the hell away from her. No need to start anything. At the end of the day, she was helping keep things under control, so guess that deserved at least some appreciation. And finally, the moment had come. Kion was about to meet his new monster pet. The loudspeaker blared about the start of a mission on the 7th floor. Next stop, power-up zone. While hunting monsters, there was a chance to score some enhancement stones. Players had no freaking clue what those were. They could use enhancement stones and gold to boost the durability of items, everything except weapons and armor. 7th floor mission. For the next 72 hours, everyone could move freely between the lobby and the floor, hunt more, get stronger. If there were no mission conditions, then when the timer hit 0, everything would auto-clear. One of the players noticed a new item in the shop, a probability-altering enhancement stone. Finally, the players got the hang of the tower. They started hoarding those stones to dominate the floor. The mission kicked off. Everyone was locked and loaded. Every single one of them rushed to dive into the portal, itching to get started. Well, almost everyone. Kion stood back, watching the whole pack scramble in first. The dude had Nike's ring, so this floor was basically a treasure chest waiting for its rightful owner. But for our main guy, there was an extra reward, a brand new pet. Power up in a pet? Kion was about to 2 birds 1 stone this thing, first try. Every player was going non-stop, mowing down every freak they ran into. Turns out those stones didn't just drop from the first monster you took down. But then there was Dean. The guy was dead set on pushing through, convinced that persistence meant guaranteed victory. Meanwhile, our guy was straight up wrecking monsters with his bare hands. Turns out you had to fight completely unarmed to tame anything, but not everyone lived long enough to pull that off. Looks like Leo was the first to score a stone, earning himself a brand new title, God of Enhancement. Seriously, how many damn nicknames does this guy have? The main dude got curious. What exactly was the redhead planning to enhance? But the guy was fighting with nothing at all, so what was he even gonna upgrade? Well, at least he's consistent. That monster was definitely not pet material. Not only was it tiny and weak, but it was also, dead. Whatever, plenty of time left. Might as well chill and keep looking. A quick glance at the timer just to check. Still got only 2 hours? Where the hell did the time go? How did it fly by so fast? At least he found a few candidates. Like that Bear King, cute, but no way he'd survive a fight. Clumsy as hell too. A badass black wolf, fast, massive, but 0 stamina. A 2-headed cat, kinda interesting, but 2 heads? Yeah, they all had their flaws. Well, at least he picked up 3 enhancement stones, not a total waste, but for Kion, the real point of the 7th floor was finding a pet. Suddenly, something peeked out from the bushes. Another wolf monster? In front of the guy stood a massive, undeniably strong monster. Could this be the one he'd been searching for all this time? His pet? A level 20 beast called Kentao. Looked kinda like a kangaroo. Not exactly badass, and definitely not cute. No way such an ugly monster could be his pet, right? But it was worth checking out. One-on-one fight. Our main guy, barehanded, against a level 20 beast that looked seriously tough. Plus, it was at least a few times taller than him. They clashed, attacking each other. That kangaroo's hits packed some serious power. Even Kion had to admit, this opponent was insanely strong, and with those springy leg muscles, its attacks hit even harder. It was ridiculously fast, like a damn lightning bolt. The beast watched him, cocky as hell. But Kion wasn't some pushover. His stats were maxed out. No way that kangaroo was stronger than him. Yeah, the monster wasn't as cool as a wolf, or as adorable as a cat. But this monster was exactly what Kion had been looking for. It had to be his pet. Jumping onto the kangaroo's back, he grabbed its ear, making it clear who was the real boss here. Just like that, he tamed Kentao. The beast dropped to the ground before him, acknowledging Kion as its master. Now he had to pick a name for the little guy. What was the first thing that came to mind? Kion called it Kenzu, mixing the name of his favorite cartoon character with kangaroo. One look at the beast, and he had to admit, it was ugly as hell, crooked teeth, lopsided face, the whole deal. Maybe he should look for something cuter, a small, adorable monster instead. But then, bam! A bright light flashed, blinding Kion. What the hell was happening to Kenzu? That huge, ugly beast suddenly transformed into a tiny, completely helpless-looking creature. Kion was mesmerized by this cute little miracle. The timer ran out, and the mission on the 7th floor was done. Everyone made their way back to the lobby. But nobody was really focused on the rewards or anything else. Nah, all eyes were on Kion's new favorite. A tiny kangaroo had completely stolen the show, winning over every single player, a little scrappy but adorable creature. But the thought lingering in everyone's mind was finally voiced by Liam. How the hell did he end up with a pet? Yeah, this time, explaining how he suddenly got an extra class, Beast Tamer, wasn't gonna be easy. At first glance, nobody really bought the idea that it just popped up out of nowhere. One way or another, this was bound to happen sooner or later. Now, how was Kion gonna talk his way out of this one? Out of nowhere, Liam yelled that for a player as skilled as our guy, one class just wasn't enough. Most of the group backed him up, cheering for the hero and his new class. Kenzo, watching all this, thought that his master was pretty much like a god here. He asked the players if they had upgraded all their gear. As expected, they all just stayed quiet, avoiding eye contact with our hero. But then, a voice called out from the side. Turning around, he saw Den. He had a leather adventurer's backpack on his shoulders, a unique class item. The kid was definitely feeling himself. Wait a sec, didn't he grab that hammer with an upgrade chance earlier? According to the guide, the guy could boost it up to 3 times. For a kid, he was handling things insanely well. Actually, he was way more talented than he seemed. Jane chimed in, asking if our hero had upgraded any of his own gear. In response, he pulled out his unique upgraded sword. Just looking at it was enough to get cut. His almost brand new looking armor was also a unique class, giving off some serious power. With all of it together, he looked like a total beast. Strong, skilled, and on top of that, downright charming. The gear only made him look even better. Everyone was in awe of Kion's new look, except for Kayla. Tough luck for the tower's favorite girl, not a single stone for her. In that moment of celebration, when everyone forgot about the tower, they had no clue what was coming next. Just as the fun continued, the lights in the lobby suddenly went out. Yeah, something was about to go down, and it wasn't going to be good. Right after that, a familiar, sweet voice echoed through the darkness, the kind that made your blood run cold every damn time. That damn rabbit showed up in front of them, wild-eyed and clearly ready to make everyone suffer. The players' faces showed all kinds of emotions, but mostly a mix of shock and pure hatred. The little menace cheerfully announced that he had a tiny surprise for them, to lift their spirits, as he put it. And that's when everyone realized they were totally screwed. Cum mysteriously asked the crowd if they'd ever felt jealous of someone. Ever looked at someone and thought that, damn, I wish I had that ability? The rabbit lit up the torches with a bloody flame, making the atmosphere even more eerie and suffocating. But along with the new fire color, something else appeared, or rather, someone else. Cum excitedly announced that he had found a way to make their wishes come true, and in front of the players, new people materialized. Another group? Were they supposed to fight them too? The little menace, with a crazed look and an even more unhinged laugh, wished them all a good time. The system notification popped up. Event activated. Eliminate players from other zones and steal their abilities as a reward. The hero had been expecting something like this after the long silence, but it still pissed him off. He had no way of knowing how these people would act, but if they were decent, they'd want to avoid a bloodbath. Maybe they could have dodged this whole mess, if not for one psycho who had already pulled out a weapon. Oh, that set him off. Seriously? She agreed to this that fast? Didn't even take a second to think? Naturally, the opposing team took that as a challenge, and in a flash they had their weapons ready too. What was Kion hoping for, with a killer in his squad? Kill someone and get a reward for it? She'd be all in. But after everything that had happened, the guy still held on to a shred of hope. Maybe, just maybe, there was a drop of humanity left in her. But from the very start, Kayla had chosen to be a killer, and that's exactly what she intended to stay. The leader of the opposing group asked if the gun aimed at him meant the war was officially starting. Kion stood there, arms lowered, unarmed, wondering, did they really have to obey every damn thing the tower wanted? The rabbit, eyes filled with pure excitement, announced that he would now guide all the players to the stage. With a single blink, everything around them vanished, people included. He woke up lying in some random bed. Whose room was this, anyway? A system message popped up, stating that all players who received this notification must enter the next room within 10 seconds. Because if they didn't, death was inevitable. Not wasting a second, he sprinted off to find another room before it was too late. But not every door was open. Only a few seconds left to find any room, otherwise his heart would stop for good. And he did find one, but it was already occupied. Turns out someone had been expecting him. A man sat in front of him, casually gesturing for him to take a seat. Michael, the opposing team's leader, a level 25 commander-class player, was calmly waiting. In reality, the death warning they all received was nothing but a trick, a setup to provoke conflict between players. When tension runs that high and you suddenly run into someone, the chances of a fight breaking out skyrocket. Michael offered him some water. Simple, but the guy had manners. Real polite. Weird. He even called a low-level player a leader. How did he figure that out? This guy was definitely no ordinary player. Right away, he made it clear. He wasn't looking for a fight, but if Kion's group wanted one, they'd have no choice but to respond. Taking a seat, he stated that his group had no intention of fighting either. The opposing leader confirmed his stance, saying that way too much blood had already been spilled in this place. He had no desire to keep losing his comrades just to satisfy the tower's twisted games. Michael's words reminded Kion of his own thoughts about the apocalypse. How he had promised himself and his friends that he'd never let the tower manipulate him again, that he'd lead them all to the top. How he had once said they'd build their own future, free from anyone else's interference. At that moment, Kion realized maybe Michael was just trying to protect his people the same way he was. If their goals aligned, then teaming up made sense. The commander proposed an alliance. Kion agreed, but there was a problem. Everyone was scattered across different rooms. How were they supposed to let them know? Michael simply smiled and said it was easy. He had telepathy. As long as he was sure Kion's group wouldn't attack, he'd use his ability to tell his people to stand down. Kion was stunned by how openly and fearlessly Michael admitted that. What if he just decided to take that ability for himself? But there was no other way. If they wanted to avoid bloodshed, they had to find common ground. Once again, Kion assured him that his group was mostly peaceful, and he could guarantee their safety as long as Michael didn't attack. But he added, there was one person in his group he couldn't make any promises about. Michael immediately guessed it was Kayla, the woman with the gun. But the main guy promised if she caused any trouble, he'd put a stop to it, no doubt. That was enough. Michael said he trusted him and sent the message to his crew. This time, Kion ended up in an empty room. Finally, a moment to think. In his mind, the talk with the enemy leader went well. But did it really? One thing left to do, find the wild card Kayla, and he knew exactly how. After clearing the 7th floor, his gold stash passed 50K, so he bought a random ability box. And just like that, the skill he needed came at the perfect time. It let him see a full map of locations and players. Using it, he saw the layout, a small 5-floor hotel. Everything looked calm. For now. Kayla was on the 5th floor. Then, he spotted something that shouldn't have happened, something that was about to cause a whole lot of problems. There was an enemy player in Leo's room, and from the looks of it, they weren't chatting about the weather. Kion bolted out of the room, praying he wasn't too late. Swinging the door open, he froze, a dead enemy on the floor, and standing over the body. Leo. Seeing this, the guy lost it. He was livid with rage. Kion grabbed Leo, shouting at him. What the hell was he thinking, literally starting a war between teams? Leo had no clue what Kion was talking about. He quickly started apologizing, but before he could finish, Kion took matters into his own hands. He explained that Leo had barged into his room and held a weapon to his throat. Kion wouldn't have believed it, if not for the guide's notification. It said assassins had eyes that could see the number of kills a person had made. That explains the assassin's eyes, but why did the notification pop up right now? Could it be that Kayla saw Michael's kill counter from the start? At that moment, Kion understood everything and let Leo go. She saw that the commander from the other team wasn't what he claimed to be. Without wasting any time, Kion headed straight for the source of all this trouble. He drew his sword and aimed it directly at his opponent, showing his intentions loud and clear. His opponent, a real killer. Michael finally took off his mask, revealing his true face. He claimed that Kion's abilities made him want to kill him, but he was almost ready to do just that, to take it from him. Kion was primed for a fight, his rage boiling over. The only thing Kion couldn't understand was why Michael sent his people to kill, instead of doing it himself to claim the reward. Michael explained that when his army grew stronger, so did he. He was confident that Kion couldn't handle him and his army alone. That might have been true. Kion wouldn't have been able to win alone. But he wasn't alone. Kion, with his faithful Kenzu against the killer and his army, who would come out on top? The commander couldn't believe his eyes. What the hell is this freaking battle kangaroo? The main dude couldn't even argue about it. The more Michael looked at our guy, the more intrigued he got. Does he seriously think he can handle them? But our hero and Kenso knew exactly what they were about to do. First things first, they had to deal with this bunch of goons. Tough job, but nothing impossible for Kion and his trusty beast. On top of that, they were using every trick in the book. Hell, the kangaroo was even throwing punches with its strong-ass tail. And the guy? He was landing his hits dead on, taking out enemies one by one. Together, they were one hell of a badass team. One of the enemies just couldn't take this kangaroo's crap anymore, so he went full rage mode and attacked. But the kangaroo blocked him before he could land a hit and smacked him with a counter so hard the dude flew straight into the opposite wall. Kion and his beast stood their ground, staring coldly at the commander, whose army was going up in flames. Michael was straight up shaking at how easily the main guy wiped out his crew. But they messed up by not finishing them off with the first hit. That was his ace up his sleeve. His minions got back up, fully recharged and ready to throw down. They were gearing up for round 2, and worse, they were coming in even stronger. Is Kion really sure he can survive in the tower like this, sparing everyone, even his enemies? This fight was even more brutal than the last one. Our heroes were drained, and it showed. How the hell were these guys still fighting so fiercely? Our hero hadn't seen any healing abilities in them. He was leveling them up to some insane degree. How the hell was Michael pulling this off? The commander was raising them using their own damn life force. What kind of freaky shit was this guy even capable of? The dude was downright smug, bragging that in this state all their stats were doubled. This psycho was actually enjoying the whole show like it was prime entertainment. Kion realized that if he drained everything out of them, they'd straight up die. How is that even okay? Thinking back on his previous words, this guy was treating his own men like disposable trash. But the man didn't care to listen. He believed the only thing that mattered was his own life and safety. He even hit the hero where it hurt, saying he wasn't exactly a saint either if he made it this far. Kion admitted his hands were bloody too, but if there was even the slightest chance to save just one person, he'd take it. Because that's what a real human does. Someone who still has a heart, someone who hasn't completely lost their conscience. That's exactly why he didn't want to kill them all, but if he didn't put an end to this, his friends would be in danger. His head had to stay cool, his emotions shut down. Right now, the only thing that mattered was saving his people. Michael could feel it. This guy was different. He activated absolute perception. Thanks to that, he dodged every single hit and even disarmed his opponents. But instead of attacking the lackeys, he went straight for the puppet master himself. And while the dude wasn't expecting that from him, Kion landed a fatal blow. His last words were something about how Kion was a damn lucky bastard for running into a monster like him, even on an unofficial mission. The commander admitted that his men were nothing more than pawns to him. Maybe in his final moments he realized he'd been wrong, but it was way too late for that. Kion and Kenzu had taken down their enemies, which meant he had partially absorbed their abilities. The mission in this zone was complete, considering most of the participants were dead. None of the players expected to be yanked back into the lobby so suddenly, but no one was really complaining. Kion was just glad that once again, all of his friends had made it out alive and in one piece. But there was someone else who caught his attention more than the other players. He glanced over, and there she was. As always, she sat apart from everyone else, not paying them the slightest bit of attention. Our hero apologized to her for how he'd reacted before, not knowing the full story. Kayla, in true fashion, just brushed it off with her usual attitude. Something about how it wasn't for them anyway, and blah blah blah. As soon as our hero started joking, telling her to admit it was all fake, she pulled out a weapon. That's when he knew. It was time to dip. Why did Kayla choose to be the villain, though? Maybe something happened in her life that pushed her down this path. Who knows? Either way, the loudspeaker announced the mission was over. Next up, the challenge on the 8th floor. Everything was moving so damn fast. One mission just ended, and another was already starting. Kion realized this was just the beginning. The next floor was going to be a brutal test for all of them. His stats had gone up a bit after fighting those tough enemies. But even with that, he had barely managed to take down his opponent. Without real power, all that talk about protecting his friends was just words. He couldn't afford to think so confidently yet. The 8th floor mission was basically a new training ground for leveling up. Our heroes were ready to throw down. Each new challenge was making them stronger and stronger. All the participants found themselves in a new lobby, but they weren't alone. Liam turned to Kion and asked if these were who he thought they were. Yep, no doubt about it. Gladiators. Not all of them, of course, but a few definitely stood out from the rest. Suddenly, something began materializing in front of the players. Naturally, everyone assumed danger and drew their weapons. A creepy screen flickered on, showing a familiar silhouette. Was that Cum-Cum? Yeah, it was a rabbit, but definitely not the cute little guy they knew. He introduced himself as the mid-level manager of the Tower of the End of the Universe. Name's Kim. Seriously, who the hell comes up with these names? The rabbit made it clear he hates being ignored, so if they wanted to stay out of trouble, they better pay attention. This place was a qualification upgrade hall where gladiators gathered. Only those who successfully completed the mission would advance to the next floor. Otherwise, well, as always, per tower rules, death. Phase 1 kicked off. The mission? Form a party of 4 and hunt down Jagam mammoths. There were 8 mammoths total, and they had only 2 hours to take them down. Fail, and yeah, we already know, death. As usual, the second the mission details dropped, the players were full of questions. There were 36 people in the hall, meaning there would be 9 parties, but only 8 monsters. One of the participants asked Kim about the mismatch. Did that mean one team was getting eliminated? Kim Kim just stared at them and asked why they were wasting time with dumb questions. Did they seriously think this was some kind of vacation? Or maybe they were just ignoring what the rabbit had said. If so, they were in for a rough time. But since this was only phase 1, he'd be generous and add a special rule. And of course, the bonus condition wasn't a gift. Killing a player would count as an equivalent monster kill. Most people were terrified at the idea, scared for their lives. But some? They looked thrilled. A portal opened, some players rushed in while others scrambled to form a party. Suddenly, a guy from an opposing team grabbed everyone's attention with an important announcement. What he asked was unexpected, but even more shocking was what it implied. The blonde dude straight up asked if there were any killers in the room. His name was Parker, and yeah, he was a killer himself. But why was he looking for others like him? What was his game? No surprise that the regular players had zero clue who these killers were or what their actual purpose was. But nobody had time to dwell on it. There wasn't enough time, and there sure as hell weren't enough monsters for everyone. A group of armed and eager players dashed forward ready to fight, no matter the cost. Looked like no one, including Kayla, was interested in teaming up with that guy. Yet somehow the party came together on its own. Liam, Kion, Parker, and some unknown girl. Their party was actually kinda stacked. Hero was a badass fencer, Def a lethal assassin, and some mystery chick. While they were out hunting monsters, the guide dropped some intel to Kion about a secret spot. Kion pulled up the minimap and spotted the leader of the Jaga mammoths chilling under some kind of barrier up northeast. That was solid news. If they took him down, no one else would get wrecked. When they rolled up on the beast, right in Kion's path, they saw this massive mammoth locked under a dome that looked tough as hell. Parker admitted he wasn't expecting to find Jack following Hero's lead. Then Liam was like, okay, yeah, Kion ain't someone you judge by his level, dude's just built different. But the assassin? He wasn't buying the hype. Said guy didn't seem as crazy strong as the swordsman made him out to be. What the hell was even up with him? And why did he suddenly pop Assassin's eye and start checking out the squad? Our hero was always the one watching others, but damn, was this what it felt like to be watched like a hawk? Before taking out the mammoth, they had to break the barrier first, but normal attacks weren't even leaving a scratch. Kion told the others that it'd probably open up on its own after some time. Turns out the guide hinted that the shield would only drop once 5 mammoths were killed. They were at 4 so far. And then shit went sideways hard. Parker straight up decapitated the girl from their team in one hit. No hesitation, no emotion. And the worst part? He was enjoying the hell out of it. The act, the blood, and especially the looks on Kion and Liam's faces. What the hell was he even thinking when he killed that girl? What did she even do to him? Kion was seriously pissed about this. The blonde explained it was just a precaution, making sure the portal would actually open. Liam was furious that this psycho was offing innocent teammates just to be safe. Kion knew having an assassin on the team meant unpredictable moves, and he was ready for anything, but this... He got way too hyped when he found out about the secret mammoth, and that's when he dropped his guard. But at the time, he wasn't even ashamed of what he'd done. In fact, he straight up said he could just kill them all and claim the reward for himself. Liam couldn't stand listening to this madman anymore and suddenly attacked him. The blonde was ready for that, so he immediately drew his sword, and in a way he was kinda glad things were going down like this. But his strike was countered by the main guy, who was a hell of a lot angrier than Liam and fully fired up to take this bastard down. He yelled at Liam to get the hell out of there. Right now, he was in big danger. That's when Parker's weapon hit someone behind the main guy, his teammate Liam. How was this even possible? This dude, does he have any feelings at all, except for a thirst for blood? The guy's body crashed to the ground hard, and Liam showed barely any signs of life. How did this even happen? Kion thought he was getting stronger all the time and thought he was pretty powerful. But he couldn't protect even one of his friends. How was this any different from that other time? Parker started taunting the main guy, pushing him to get even more emotional. The guy didn't feel anything. Nothing at all, except for pure rage and the desire to destroy this smug killer. That's when the barrier started to disappear. Who would survive out of the 3? The main guy, the psychopathic killer, or the boss monster? The beast's trunk left devastating marks. Its strikes were powerful and definitely fatal. Kion barely managed to pull Liam away from the monster, just in time to save him from certain death. He took him to a somewhat safe spot, far from both the monster and the psychopath. The only relief was that his friend was still breathing, even if it was weak and irregular. Just like he thought, his partner was strong, so he was able to survive even those heavy wounds. Watching the fight, he realized he kind of envied how only the primitive ones could enjoy that kind of chaos. They can enjoy that kind of chaos. This guy was really a psycho. No doubt he was stronger than Kion, maybe even way stronger than the main guy. Especially impressive was this psychopath's unique skill, his weapon, the blade's aura. Because the aura moves separately from the sword, it's hard to predict where the attack will come from. Of course, the main guy wanted to kill him right now, but if he attacked, he would definitely lose. First, he planned to take down the mammoth boss, only 15 minutes left, and at the same time analyze the blonde's patterns. The main guy killed the mammoth and got some reward for it. Parker admitted that while he hadn't found the killer, he'd uncovered something much more interesting in the form of this guy. After getting his reward, he decided to let Kion live for now. He was in a good mood. That's when Kion couldn't take it anymore and asked him why he chose the path of an assassin. Parker was surprised. How could someone like the main guy with such a low level know about the assassin's path? Most of the players had gone back to the lobby, just happy for the simple things, like surviving this time. Liam came back with Kion and thanked him for saving his life once again. But if it weren't for that psycho killer, they could have made it back with the original party. Kion remembered that same conversation with the blonde about his killing path. For Parker, the main guy was getting more and more interesting with each new word. Then he made his terms. He would explain how he knew about assassins, and Parker, in turn, would answer all his questions. He agreed, but only if the info Kion shared actually intrigued him. Then the main guy said there was also an assassin in his area, and this one was so special, he had an interesting weapon, a gun. He called Kayla the king of assassins, of course, not revealing the identity, but he was the only one with a firearm. Whether this concept even existed, he didn't know, but it seemed like an interesting bait, just needed to see if he'd bite. Then Parker asked who this person was, and Kion realized he'd taken the bait. The main guy asked his own question in return. Why was Parker looking for another assassin, and what exactly were his goals? Touching the knife was a bad idea, although the portal healed some of the wounds. His hand still hurt, but at least he learned some info. On the Day of Blood, all assassins' stats increase and the slaughter begins. Parker knows when that day will be, roughly. To make it happen, cooperation with other assassins is necessary. Since Kayla made the main guy her primary target, the Day of Blood has been on his mind non-stop. I wonder, does Kayla, who secretly shows humanity, have the same bloodthirsty thoughts as Parker? Now that he knows the blonde's main objectives, he can't just leave him alone. He's determined to deal with him on this floor, no matter the cost, even if it means going all the way. Suddenly, Kakimkim appeared on the screen. Looking straight at Kion, he asked if this was the one who found the hidden mammoth. So what's going to happen to him now? Because of that, the rabbit said they're now taking volunteers to off other players. Of course, first come, first served. Wonder who's going to be the first ones to step up. Kim pointed out that way too many players made it out of the last mission, 'cause some of them found the secret mammoth. At least 4 players gotta go, but everyone knew the real issue was that there were more survivors than expected. Players started asking the rabbit how all this was tied to killing people. Then they started putting 2 and 2 together. Every mission had a minimum body count. If they didn't take out those 4, the next mission wouldn't even start. Technically, Kim could handle it himself, but where's the fun in that? He made it clear, taking out other players came with some special rewards, so they better start picking off the easy targets. This rabbit really wanted to thin the herd with a full-on massacre, so what was the deal with that hidden monster? One of the players from the other team pointed out that he was just messing around, waiting to see them tear each other apart. When the others told him to back off, he didn't listen, just kept pushing the rabbit's buttons. He said Kim had threatened them before but never actually laid a hand on anyone. But that wasn't true. Just look at what happened to Kayla. Guide had warned Kion, never piss off Kim. He won't just let it slide, he'll make sure something bad goes down. But that dude wasn't even thinking about stopping. Wasn't his whole job just to explain the mission rules? Man, he never should have started this, should have kept his mouth shut and stayed far away from that rabbit. The guy's shoulder got pierced clean through, blood splattered everywhere. Shouldn't have pissed off the little manager. Kim warned them, didn't he? Ignoring what he says is just asking for trouble. Just 'cause this mini psycho is behind a screen doesn't mean he can't get to them. No one's untouchable here. End of the day, this is the Tower of the Apocalypse. Total end-of-the-world chaos. No one's getting special treatment. Kim gave them one last choice. Either he kills someone, or they start taking each other out. Suddenly, two players raised their hands at the same time, Kion and Parker. Maybe this was our hero's chance to fight back against the evil. The system announced the start of a special mission. The players were teleported into an empty hall, facing each other. Well, if he chose to duel, the protagonist had to take down the killer right here, right now. Since the blonde guy never planned on killing Kion, he wasn't expecting Kion to step up as his opponent. Is he sure he can handle this? Parker thinks this is gonna be fun. Then the protagonist said he shouldn't judge his enemies based on kill count alone. That caught Parker's interest. How did he know something like that? What did he see in a killer's eyes? But Kion assured him there were plenty of ways to get stronger in this place. Being a psycho wasn't the only one. Still, gotta admit, this psycho was stronger than the protagonist. Now that their swords finally clashed, he could feel the difference, even with his unique weapon. Kion could only block his attacks. He couldn't land a single hit in return. This killer had some serious advantages. His attacks were way too strong. Could Kion even hold out? Parker smirked and said Kion's talk about strength wasn't really matching up with reality. While Kion tried to recover from the first part of the fight, Parker just stood there, waiting for more fun. This was nothing but a game to him. Our hero knew what he had wasn't enough to win. Good thing he had an ace up his sleeve. He wasn't alone, he had his little pet, Kenzu. Thanks to the element of surprise, he managed to land a solid hit on that lunatic. Of course, that slick bastard tanked the attack like a pro. I mean, who the hell would have expected a kangaroo to pop out of nowhere? But now, to Parker's annoyance, things just got a whole lot harder. 2 against 1? Guess the fun was over. After Kion sliced him, Parker realized he wasn't as untouchable as he thought. He scoffed, asking if summoning a familiar was even fair. What? Was the all-powerful killer struggling against just 2? But numbers didn't mean jack. Parker could be outnumbered 10-1 and he'd still want to slit every single throat. He went all in, attacking at full power. Back during the mammoth hunt, Kion had noticed Parker's one real weakness. Yeah, his aura blade was insanely powerful, but it burned through way too much mana. The psycho was pissed, especially after Kenzu's hit, so now he was gonna go all out. That meant his mana was gonna drain at max speed. But here was the real problem. His attacks were nearly impossible to predict. Our hero had absolute intuition. When he activated it, he could dodge the attacks. If he and Kenzu could hold out until Parker's mana hit 0, Kion would use the skill he had saved for this exact moment. That would give them a real shot at taking Parker down. At least, that was the plan, and in that plan, they were the winners. But had the protagonist considered all possible outcomes? Did he predict the sacrifices he'd have to make? Kion himself didn't have the strength to land a decisive hit, but with Kenzu around, there were more targets for Parker to deal with. The moment was coming, soon his blade would break for good. With Parker's mana nearly depleted, Kion and Kenzu launched their attack, hoping this would be the final blow. They activated their unique abilities at the same time. Kenzu unleashed a devastating strike, while Kion used his mid-tier swordsmanship skill. But in the last second, they miscalculated. They got in each other's way. The psycho took full advantage of their mistake. Using the last of his mana, he delivered a brutal, fatal strike. Kenzu, Kion's beloved companion, threw himself in front of his master, shielding him. He sacrificed himself so Kion could survive. Kenzu, his loyal kangaroo, was gone. Was this really the reality Kion had to live with? Parker didn't waste a second. He started tearing into Kion verbally, mocking him. Got any more aces up your sleeve? Wasn't it Kion who had preached about all the other ways to get stronger without killing? Well, Parker had to admit, this was a surprise. The blonde mockingly noted that Kion had depended entirely on his pet, and now he was kneeling before him. But to Kion, Kenzu wasn't just a pet. He had sacrificed his life to save his master. Parker expected him to say some cliché line about how Kenzu was more than just a kangaroo, a true friend and companion. In Parker's mind, the more someone got attached to things, the weaker they became, easier to break. Maybe it was a cliché, but sharing joy, fighting side by side and living in peace were what truly made people human. Kion stated that this blood-stained path would only lead Parker to loneliness, but the psychopath denied it all. He didn't want to hear anymore. To him, those words were worthless. Even when facing death, he found it amusing to watch Kion desperately cling to his humanity. Along with physical blows, Parker kept attacking Kion verbally, mocking how his little pet was crushed in an instant. But Kion knew the truth. He was still alive only because of Kenzu, and thanks to him, Parker's mana was completely drained. The psychopath lunged at Kion, hoping to land the same fatal strike he had dealt to his companion. But this time, Kion countered, activating the second level of his mid-tier swordsmanship. A previously unknown energy surged from his weapon, something called liberation. That power erased Parker from existence as if he had never even been in that room. Kion hadn't just defeated his opponent, he hadn't wounded him or killed him, he had utterly erased him. At that moment, he unlocked the second level of mid-tier swordsmanship and, as a bonus, gained the ability to use liberation. However, using it drained almost all of his mana, something that had to be used carefully. The power was incredible, and as the dust settled, Kion realized he had actually defeated the killer. But at what cost? Silently, he apologized to Kenzu and thanked him. Suddenly, a notification appeared. His fallen companion could return in 24 hours. Could Kenzu actually revive? As the battle concluded, a screen appeared in front of Kion, displaying Kim Kim's face. Kim Kim admitted that the outcome was unexpected. He liked players like Kion and congratulated him on the win. But there was no time to relax. Now that the killer was dead, missions would become much harder. What did that mean? According to Kim Kim, killers were some of the strongest elites in the tower and, more importantly, a key part of the difficulty scale. Now that one of them was gone, the difficulty level of the missions would spike. A contradiction formed in Kion's mind. If fewer killers existed, reaching the top would become even tougher. But if they weren't stopped, it would lead to catastrophe, everyone drowning in blood and corpses. How was he supposed to handle this situation? Regardless, he had completed his mission, and Kim Kim sent him off to his next task along with his reward. Kion found himself in a new location, standing near a strange structure. It looked a lot like a giant hourglass. Something about it felt oddly familiar, like it was pulled straight out of a comic book. Turning to the side, he spotted someone. An old man? Was this guy supposed to be his reward? The new mission was for the dude to hit a certain level of success in training before the clock ran out. That's it, no details, all vague and unclear, and what the hell does a certain level even mean? Nothing made sense. Well, at least he got lucky in one way. No need to compete with anyone, let alone kill him. Before this, Kim Kim wanted to give him a random skill box, but Demon Kill was a special reward. But now, looking at this old dude, he's thinking that box would have been way more useful. Kion asked the old man who he was. The guy replied that he's a celestial demon who's supposed to become the main character's master. How could this be the same dude he read about earlier, comparing him to those martial arts webtoons? Well, there's definitely some differences. This guy looks more like a Shaolin monk than a celestial demon. While the hero was lost in thought, he gets clocked on the head with a stick? That little dude smacked him on the head for his dirty thoughts. Does he also read minds or something? By the way, the hit was pretty obvious, but Kion didn't react to it. Wonder how that happened. The celestial demon said Kion's level was like trash, so he's gonna hit him again, and this time, the dude will try to block it. Grabbing his sword, the hero admitted that he was just zoning out last time, but this time, he'd be ready to deflect the attack. He even activated his absolute senses for this. Is he that serious about it? And that didn't even help him save himself. The hit came again, same spot, same stick. The dude thought the hero had improved his perception and sensitivity, but his body couldn't react in time. How's that even possible? His agility hit its max, but the old man explained it's not just about speed or slowness. The celestial demon told Kion to attack him. What chance does the old man even have? The kid's got a sick sword, and all the old dude's got is a stick. Kion decided to stop feeling sorry for him and checked his status window. This monster had zero info about anything. Even though the main character could only use this once, he decided to show everything he's got. He activated the second level of an average swordsman. The dude decided to use a new ability, Release. But this man had every right to call himself a celestial demon, 'cause he split Kion's attack in two like Moses did. Just with that damn stick proving his earlier words, Kion's level is total trash. He said neither his weapon nor magic techniques make him the god of all warriors, and in order to get the master's knowledge of martial arts, first he'd have to get rid of all the magic techniques in his body. The hero was confused. This was the foundation of everything that helps survive in the Tower of the End of the World, but the demon didn't seem too bothered by it. In the end, without that power, Kion wouldn't have survived long enough to face this task, so he definitely wasn't backing down from the offer. But every mission is something new, and this time he's got to do the complete opposite of what he's done before. Time's already ticking, and it's not like it's going slow. Starting from scratch is really gonna suck. Kion's already an average swordsman, and just leaving it all behind 'cause the old demon wants him to? The dude saw how the hero was struggling in his thoughts, so he said he wasn't gonna force him. The choice is his. Either he stays where he's always been, or he accepts the teachings and rises up. Most people would lay down their life just to hear a word from his mouth, but this young dude might miss that chance. But the main character had felt before that a fight based only on skills and stats has its limits. Sticking his sword in the ground, he made a kind of gesture. It was clear he was ready to be his disciple. Dropping to his knees, the guy begged his new master to teach him. After getting rid of his skills, surprisingly, the guy managed to restore all his previous levels. From the moment he agreed to become a disciple, Kion got stronger, it was clear, 'cause he managed to beat himself. It was hard to tell exactly how much time had passed, but the hero was sure he'd surpass all his past achievements before the last grain of sand fell. The demon came out to congratulate him, saying the kid had outdone his past self. Just as Kion was pumped about the praise, the demon said he still had a trash level. The dude realized this kid had way more potential than he first thought. He might even have qualities that could surpass any traits of a sect disciple. The demon said that now they were officially master and disciple, so the kid had to show respect and bow. Now? What were they before? The demon and his protege? The kid and the old man? Then the master explained he'd teach him swordsmanship, which he perfected using the celestial demon's unique technique. The majestic swordsmanship of all time, the shadowless phantom sword. The legend of the master kicks off when one day he gets crowned the greatest genius in martial arts history. Before even hitting 29, he pulls off the impossible, uniting the 7 branches of the Kayonma cult, then takes the throne as the heavenly Kayonma. By then, people were already saying he was the greatest Cheonma of all time. He dedicated his whole life to the way of the sword, becoming one with the blade, ascending only to end up in this tower. Only when he landed here did he realize this was the end of his road. Kion thought they had him locked up here against his will. Turns out, he actually made a deal with the tower, playing a certain role, and he could dip back to his world whenever he wanted. So, based on what he said, does that mean everyone here is basically an NPC? Because of the contract, the guy couldn't spill any more details. But he promised Kion one thing. He'd master a sword art of insane power, a blade that hunts the soul without leaving a shadow. The hero swore he'd do whatever it takes to make that happen. The master was straight up shocked at how chill and emotionless his reaction was. If he were some cult disciple, he'd be losing his mind, but Kion, he didn't even know a technique like that existed. Plus, dude had barely any time. Every single second counted for mastering something this crazy. The new master laid it out. Kion had to grind hard from now on and be ready for whatever came next. Kion dropped his sword mastery skill, but getting back to his old level wasn't that hard. He just had to walk the same path again. But this shadowless phantom sword technique, yeah, that was a whole different beast. It was slow and fast at the same time, calm but deadly, soft yet powerful. Like what the hell? That's straight up insane. The master flexed, saying he, literally the greatest genius ever, had spent his whole life perfecting this technique. Ever since training started, it just felt like everything was getting worse instead of better. That's when the old man wrapped up his yoga session. Then, out of nowhere, he asked if Kion wanted to spar. Like, bro, I just said I suck and you're already trying to throw hands? Barely managing to beat his own doppelganger going up against the master. Zero shot at winning. But the clock was ticking and there was no time to argue, so he gripped his sword and got ready. He launched a lightning-fast attack, but the master dodged it just as effortlessly. Again, and again, and again. All he was doing was burning himself out. The old man's movements were so damn ghostly, it was impossible to lock onto him. Then the master pulled out a stick, his signature move, to smack him over the head. The plan was to block it clean and counterattack. But nah, still got whacked, saw it coming, predicted it perfectly, so why the hell couldn't he stop it? Then the old man said straight up, his helpless instincts would never surpass the sword. Maybe that stuff worked before, with fake-outs or last-second changes in attack angles. But now, he could trick those instincts with ease. What the hell was the master even thinking? Time was running out, and his mind was getting more and more cluttered. Was it even worth it to keep learning this insane technique? What if time just ran out? Reading his thoughts, the master told him to quit overthinking and just feel the texture. In that moment, a whole different world unfolded before him, like a parallel dimension, vibrant and nothing like reality. The master, entering a state of complete calm, seemed to merge with this world and told him to sense the texture of everything, both tangible and intangible. Everything that exists, and even what doesn't, has its own texture. And if Kion could feel it, he'd have the power to cut through anything. Then it all started making sense, the sword that hunts the soul without a shadow, the shadowless phantom sword. A blade that could cut through even the intangible. Calm yet powerful. Soft yet unbreakable. And then he felt it, the texture. This time the master attacked first. But Kion wasn't just seeing an ordinary stick anymore. And in his hands, it wasn't just some store-bought sword either. He counterattacked. That cursed stick? Sliced clean in half, he had felt the texture, he had touched the intangible. In the master's eyes, there was a flicker of pride. His student had surpassed him. And in Kion's? Pure awe. He was finally holding the true blade, the sword that hunts the soul without a shadow. Even though he was on his way to mastering the blade, not everyone could see its true essence. The master told the kid that the secret of the shadow-chasing sword wasn't about filling up, it was about emptying out. He'd only reach true mastery once he hit his limit, stripping away everything unnecessary. The main dude could never get there on his own, 'cause he kept chasing quick wins, always looking for better moves. It's kinda like how no fancy haircut can ever outshine the glow of a bald head. Too bad he thought of that now. Kion totally forgot about the master's telepathy. Dropping to his knees, he thanked the master once again, swearing to remember his lessons forever and make it to the top of the tower. When he looked up, the master was gone, just some clothes left behind. Kion was confused, but then the heavenly Shayanma explained. His student couldn't be walking around like some broke drifter. In the end, he promised they'd cross paths again on the way to the peak of the tower at the end of the world. With those words, the main dude's mission was complete, and he got teleported somewhere else. But this wasn't some familiar lobby or waiting room full of gladiators. He had no clue where he was. He could feel a presence behind him, and, yeah, it was definitely not a friendly one. Sitting there was the mid-floor manager, a rabbit named Kim. He ended up in the same room he'd seen on the screen. But why? What was he even doing here? Turns out, Kim had a proposition for him. He reminded Kion about their last convo. Since Parker the killer was dead, there was now an open spot. And Kion? He was next in line to take it. The guy asked if he could just, say no. Technically, by the rules, Kim couldn't force him to do anything, but on the other hand, no one wanted to find out what happened when Kim got pissed, and he really hated when people ignored his words. So he couldn't force anyone, but threatening? Yeah, that was totally fine, apparently. If Kion took the deal, everything he'd been working toward would go up in smoke, leaving him no choice but to fight his way through. But at his current level, he couldn't even grasp Kim's true power. He was stuck. What was the right move here? What the hell was he supposed to do? Then he remembered he had his own guide, so he decided to check it for answers. According to it, after completing the Gladiator mission, he'd be sent back to the start of the 8th floor quest, the Beast Tamer. The tower never stopped pulling surprises, but how did that connect to his situation now? Simple. If he was going back to the start of that mission, that meant Parker would still be alive. With that in mind, he agreed to Kim's offer. Kion had officially stepped onto the path he once despised. Our guy was now an assassin. That decision definitely pleased the manager. Becoming a killer boosted his power. All his stats shot up, every single one leveled higher. The system notified him that his swordsmanship skill had been overlapped with blade aura. But wait, hadn't the master erased that from his status? Out of nowhere, the system started glitching. This had never happened before. Instead, it gave him an alternative weapon and new skills. Kion felt his energy shift wildly, like it was completely out of control. After teleporting to the waiting hall with the gladiators, he was greeted warmly by his friend, Liam. But something was off. Kion's whole vibe had changed, and even the other players could tell. The comments about his new look didn't go unnoticed either. He was wearing a fresh uniform from the master. Thankfully, not one that matched heavenly Cheonma's. Still, the teacher had given him some seriously slick gear, and on top of that, it automatically repaired itself when damaged. But there were only a handful of people in the hall with them. Was this really all that had survived? Once everyone had gathered, a screen appeared, with Kim on it. He announced that the final mission would be way harsher than any before. How many would make it out alive this time? Snapping his fingers, he smirked and wished them all nothing but pure agony till the bitter end. Then, from all sides, monsters appeared, lion-like beasts, but way more sinister. The arena filled with a roaring crowd, all hungry for blood and death, just like the real gladiator fights of old. The new mission? Take down an iron lion. Success meant an upgraded gladiator status. Failure meant death. This was the stage for their final mission, the arena, also known as the gladiator's graveyard. Didn't seem too bad, except each of these iron lions was radiating an aura as intense as that mammoth they barely took down with 4 people. One of the gladiators, Simon, was ready to die here, but as a warrior, with his sword in hand and pride on his face. Just as he was about to strike one of the lions, fully prepared for death, something from behind one-shotted him with a single devastating blow. Everyone in the room wanted gladiator blood, not the monsters. No one saw that coming. Kion stood there, gripping a firearm, just as shocked by his new power as everyone else. But that surprise? It vanished fast, replaced by pure exhilaration. This felt better than he ever could have imagined. True joy from the thrill of death, this was Kion now, a killer. After successfully completing the mission as a gladiator, Kion was supposed to return to the lobby. But, just as expected, the system glitched again. He knew this was coming, and he got sent back to the start of the 8th floor mission. The main dude found himself in the Beast Tamer's waiting hall. Time had actually rewound. Checking his status, all of his assassin stats were gone. With Parker revived, the assassin spot was filled again, but his weapon was still in his inventory, not that it mattered much without sniper skills. Then he remembered, after beating Michael, he was supposed to inherit some of his opponent's abilities. That's how he unlocked a basic level of telepathy. He could now send mental messages to up to 5 teammates. First thing Kion did? Warn Liam about the assassin, Parker. Since Parker would now be soloing the gladiator mission with the mammoths. Liam kinda freaked out a little. But hey, at least this heads up might actually keep him alive. Our boy pulled himself together and decided to summon Kenzu. He knew the little guy would come back, but still, he couldn't shake the nerves. Kenzu didn't keep him waiting. Soon enough, a small kangaroo popped up right in front of him. Their reunion was pure joy, full of emotions, though Kenzu had no clue why his master was getting all sentimental. That's when some guy with an annoyingly kind-looking face walked up to them, saying he seriously didn't get how the little creature was still alive. From the jump, the dude straight up declared Kenzu as prey for his 2-headed Doberman, Kelve. A screen popped up with Kim on it, announcing the start of the 8th floor mission. Kion wasn't even listening to the details, but this guy, daring to set his sights on Kenzu? Hell no. The mission was simple: win a pet duel. Victory meant an upgraded beast tamer rank. Losing meant getting booted to the next mission. Kim made it clear. Even if you lost, as long as you were still breathing, you could advance to the next floor. There weren't enough participants, so the rules were loose. The battle began, and Kion's opponent, none other than the smug brunette with his 2-headed hellhound Kelve. You could only imagine the shock on the guy's face when Kenzu, once a tiny creature, morphed into a full-on combat kangaroo. The transformation was insane, and his opponent was starting to realize this monster wasn't some weak little pet. Without hesitation, he ordered his beast to attack Kion's companion. The thing was massive, with giant, razor-sharp teeth, looking completely feral, like it lived for nothing but ripping throats apart. But Kion and Kenzu were faster, dodging each attack with ease. Kelve wasn't just strong and fast, he had 2 heads, making his movements unpredictable. But then, a major flaw started to show. Not in the beast, but in the tamer. With the right training, a pet could reach combat class levels. But if you only focused on the pet's growth, the tamer's own combat skills would stay below average. And from the perspective of a beast forced to protect its weak master, that meant its true power was being held back. That's probably why beast tamers were so rare, but none of them had ever been like Kenzu and Kion. This ain't just a monster showdown, it's a test for the tamers too. The opponent couldn't wrap his head around how the main dude, a tamer, handled a sword like a total pro. He straight up ordered to take both of them out. But when Kelwy attacked, the guy and his beast split in opposite directions. Even though they had two heads, it was still one body. Sure, the monster was fast and strong, but messing with two heads at once? Way easier than you'd think. When Kelwy finally lost his cool, it was go time. Before, Kion was all about his own attack, so he and Kenzu had zero sync, but now he could feel it. Kenzu's strike and our guy's sword moved together like a perfect battle rhythm. This mission? It was a game changer. He scored a shadowless phantom sword as a quest reward. And after this gig, the main dude and his beast, they'd be the dream team everybody wished they had. In the end, Kion and Kenzu cleared the mission like champs and headed back to the lobby to meet up with their crew. Kion figured nothing could surprise or shake him after all that. But one of his buddies actually caught him off guard. Liam straight up asked him, "Who the hell are the killer?" Everyone who made it back got to level up their skills, and that was a huge relief for our guy. He actually felt a weight lift off his shoulders. Liam straight up said they only survived because of him, and his telepathic abilities. Some of the others were kinda bummed that he tested it out on the swordsman first and only on him. But when he glanced over to a quieter spot away from the crowd, he noticed Kayla. Surprisingly, she looked upset. Not everyone made it back this time. The missions were getting harder, and the survival rate was dropping fast. That sudden question about assassins, who they were, hit different. It got everyone else thinking too, and now Kion had to come up with a solid answer before things spiraled into even more questions. Looking back, he realized just how dangerous Parker really was. Even Kayla didn't know what he knew about the assassins. Then, remembering the upcoming mission on the 9th floor, an idea clicked in his head. He straight up said, "They're the ones who control the difficulty of the Tower of the World's End." Right then the loudspeakers blared. 1 hour till they were all sent to the 9th floor. They needed to train up. Every player jumped into prep mode, focusing on what they had to sharpen before the next challenge. That included our guy. Shadowless soul hunting was no joke, and there was no way he was gonna slack on training. During training, some chick rolled up on the dude. Kayla. She was dead set on having a convo with our guy. Guess she took the bait. Back when Kion was a killer himself, he dug up some wild intel about Blood Day. On the 9th floor, there's gonna be a vote about Blood Day. If most folks are down for it, the 10th floor turns into the event's battleground. After their areas merged, Kayla couldn't go all out with her weapons. Odds are, she's the one who's gonna vote yes. Nah, scratch that. It ain't just a chance. She's 100% pushing for it on the 10th floor, and it's up to the dude to make her second-guess that call. Then our guy hit her with a bombshell. He knows who she really is. Killer Kayla. She was shook by what he knew. And then he cranked it up a notch, whipped out his gun, and straight up said he's a killer too. Kayla wasn't buying it right away, but it at least explained why dude's got all these crazy skills. She activated her killer's eye and scoped out his kill count. Just 5. That got her a little sus. To clear things up, Kion was like, "Yeah, I ain't racked up a big body count, but don't go trusting that killer's eye of yours too much." And just like that, all her doubts, poof, gone. She swallowed his story whole, believing he was the real deal. Aiming her piece at him, Kayla demanded to know how he figured out she was a killer too, since she'd never let that slip. Kion just hit her with, "I see it all. Your stats, your class, your mana, your skills. Hell, even how much gold you got." She snapped. No way that could be real. No way he had abilities that busted. The main dude decided to prove his words were straight-up facts. He started listing off her exact mana count and what she could even do with that much. He wasn't planning to stop, just kept rattling off numbers and details until she had to cut him off herself. Our guy had played his final card, knowing she wouldn't be making any reckless votes now. 'Cause here's the deal. If a killer takes out another killer, they get slapped with a massive penalty. Kayla had one last question, and Kion was sure whatever it was, he could spin it to his advantage. No matter what she asked, he'd find a way to make it work for him. But then she hit him with something he never saw coming. She asked if he was the Grand Killer. The hell is a Grand Killer supposed to be? Lucky for Kion, a voice blasted through the speakers, announcing the start of the next mission on the 9th floor. Our dude got transported to some creepy abandoned spot, a graveyard. He was alone, which meant this was a solo mission. Out of nowhere, a glow appeared and a shadowy figure started forming. The second he laid eyes on it, he knew exactly who it was. The person standing before him? Yeah, that sent chills down his spine, like they'd just crawled out of the grave. Or had they actually come back from the dead? 'Cause according to the 9th floor mission, people who died before the world ended were about to be resurrected. The guide gave our hero a heads up. He better keep his cool and not lose his mind over this. Before the apocalypse, Kion's childhood was rough. Dude was an orphan, and he had to fight off discrimination however he could. Life wasn't just hard for him, it was straight-up survival mode every damn day. Kids could be brutal, clowning on him for his social status, how broke he was, and every other thing that mattered in society. Any potential friends he had? They always folded under the influence of the richer, more powerful kids. This time, one of the bullies was messing with him just 'cause Kion snagged the top spot in the semester exams. That bastard crossed a line he never should've, brought up Kion's parents and how he was an orphan. Our guy snapped and did exactly what that little punk deserved. He punched him square in the face. Zero regrets. No one disrespects family. His patience ran out the moment he heard that dude talking trash about the orphanage and the people in it. Back then, Kion thought serving justice like that was fair. There was this woman, someone real close to him, who always had his back in moments like these. She'd put herself on the line, swallow her pride, and step in to protect him, no matter what. That was the day he realized something. Justice without strength? That only leads to even worse injustice. After that incident, Kion decided he'd never stand out again. He'd be a ghost in the crowd, invisible. Even when he saw unfairness happening right in front of him, he made a choice to just walk past it. He stopped existing, at least that's how it felt. 'Cause in his mind, he wasn't strong enough to protect anyone, not even himself. The 9th floor mission was simple: wipe out all the monsters that had killed others and free the souls of the fallen. First up, a level 1 unicorn raccoon. Wait, this little dude killed his director? The main guy apologized. Once again, he had failed to protect her, just like back in his childhood. He remembered walking with the director back then, crying his eyes out, 'cause she got hit because of him. But she never acted like some strict director. She told him to call her mom, and she never wanted him to apologize. Protecting her kids, that's just what parents do. Nothing had changed. He still felt guilty, and she still acted like his mother. Kion hadn't felt this at peace in forever, standing in a graveyard, holding his dead director in his arms. His mom noticed how much he'd been through, how many struggles he had faced. Now he was the one protecting those who needed it. Kion had the strength, and he was using it the right way. When he was a kid, the director always told him to stand up for the weak. She led by example. He spent his whole life trying to stay invisible, but now, even after the apocalypse, he was finally following her teachings. That damn raccoon wasn't about to wait around to get killed. It decided to strike first. Taking down this mini-monster? Way too easy for the main dude. But if he killed it, she'd probably disappear right away. He couldn't do it. Letting her go this fast? No way. But she knew him better than anyone, so she told him straight up, "Don't hesitate. Do it." He had people to protect now. She understood. Kion just had to keep walking the path he chose for himself. He couldn't think anymore. The longer she stayed, the harder it was to say goodbye. His path? Climb the tower of the world's end, destroy it, and bring back the world that once was. Maybe. That was really what he had chosen for himself. With the raccoon's death, his closest person, his non-blood mother, the woman who taught him how to live, was gone for good. Kion wasn't the only player struggling to leave their loved ones in the past and move on. Jane was in the middle of fighting one of the monsters. The thing was insanely strong, no doubt, but for her, the real fight wasn't against the creature itself. It was the fact that she couldn't bring herself to kill it. Before the apocalypse, everyone had their own lives. Jane was no different. She had someone special. Ever since her youth, she had been a total bookworm, obsessed with studying for the future. She'd get so lost in it that she'd forget basic things, like eating or sleeping. But her friend always had her back, bringing her the supplements she needed, looking out for her. Jane appreciated that more than anything. She was endlessly grateful to him. They had an especially close bond. One of their meetups almost turned into a total nightmare, a life-or-death situation. Jane could have died that day, and she would have, if her close friend hadn't pushed her out of death's grip, taking the hit himself. The guy lost a leg because of it. He was the one who paid the price. Jane was safe, but he had dreams of becoming a national athlete. And to this day, the weight of that incident haunted her. She still blamed herself. If it weren't for her, he'd still be whole. The ghost of the dead accused Jane himself, and she wanted to hear it. She wanted to drown in it, let him drag her all the way down. The monster wasn't going to wait. It had no intention of letting her snap out of it. All Jane could do was apologize over and over. She could never forgive herself, not for his injury, and now, not for his death. That's when Kion stepped in, just in time. Good thing he showed up when he did. She wouldn't have made it on her own. But Jane wasn't really there. Her body was in the fight, but her mind? Somewhere else entirely. She was sinking, drowning in guilt. He had already died once. He couldn't die again. She couldn't do this to him. But holding the monster back was way harder than just ending it. Kion was shouting at the top of his lungs, trying to snap her out of it. He knew exactly how hard it was, how impossible it felt to let go. That guy must have meant the world to her. So he reminded her, she had promised to get stronger. So where the hell did that promise go? The main dude smashed the monster's head, finishing it off for good. Jane just couldn't. She couldn't do it. Was this really how her story ended? Drowning in guilt? Then Kion dropped the game-changing words. Would her friend, the one who straight-up sacrificed himself for her, ever say this was all on Jane? The guy who actually cared about her, could he really blame her for this mess? Could he ever hate her for it? And that's when she remembered that day, like really remembered. Jane thought about her friend, the real one, the kind one, the dude who always had her back and would never, ever point fingers at her. She finally let it sink in. The whole nightmare, the accident. It wasn't on her, not really. That's just the kind of guy he was, always putting everyone else first. Maybe that's why she wanted to be friends with Kion from the jump. He reminded her of him. Only one thing left to do, take out the monster and bring some peace to a lost soul. She drove that final blade straight through the creature's skull. That was her goodbye. But really, this whole mission? It was never about monsters. It was about closure, about making peace with loss. No doubt this was the hardest mission, mentally at least. 3 hours left, Kion couldn't save everyone. Jane was right there, but the others? Scattered all over the graveyard. All he could do now was back them up, telepathically at least. He believed in them. They'd pull through. But our guy? He was looking for one person, and she was already waiting. Kayla stood alone. The main dude made himself wait, but he didn't regret it one bit. Whether the blood day happens on the 10th floor depends on the vote at the altar on the 9th floor. There are 2 crystals, blue and red. If you vote yes, you place a red stone on the altar. Otherwise, you drop a blue one. No one knows how many killers are out there. If the 10th floor turns into a blood day, several regions will merge into one. And when that happens, the killers will start hunting down other players according to their roles. To get even one vote against, Kion had to convince Kayla. She probably had close ones too, but it seemed like she didn't care. Maybe her emotions dulled after she got the killer status. Kion wasn't about to waste time, so he got straight to the point, wrapping up the conversation from the lobby. Kayla thought he was the grand killer, 'cause he always made the right calls, like he could see the future or something. He straight up asked if she saw his words and actions as legit. He had no clue what a grand killer was, but if she thought that, so be it. Without hesitation, the girl said yes, then asked what his next move was regarding Blood Day. Kion said he figured it was too soon to kick things off. Killers or not, everyone needed to climb to the top of the tower. He had no idea how many more floors they had to clear, but he was sure it was a lot. If they wiped out all the players on the 10th floor, how long would the remaining killers even last on their own? Those who lost their usefulness would get booted out. That's why they had to push Blood Day back. The only problem? Even if Kayla voted against it, most of the killers were dead set on making the 10th floor a bloodbath. After hearing the guy out, the choice was up to the girl, and she said that sometimes she felt like all of this was just fate. She added that, as every killer knew, each of them was given a unique ability. Then she crushed the blue crystal in her hand. And with a smirk, she said she knew how to change everything. Kayla activated a hidden ability, instantly teleporting both of them somewhere else. New mission: hunt down the Black Blood Wolf. Time limit: 50 minutes. And the biggest catch? Their wish would become the wish of every killer. Right off the bat, she called it a lost cause. How the hell were they supposed to find a wolf in just an hour? Kion had completely forgotten about her absolute lack of direction. And so an interesting sight unfolded. Our trio racing against time to track down the beast. Kion and Kayla, riding atop Kenzu, leaped over what was definitely a deep-ass canyon. One of them really had a talent for being dramatic. But damn, they actually found the Black Blood Wolf fast. It was massive, and obviously deadly. Kayla wasn't even surprised. Of course, a big killer like Kion would track it down. The tension was unreal. The future of almost every participant was riding on this. The Black Wolf could spit out insanely toxic venom, one wrong move, and it was game over. This time, he didn't have perfect armor. This wasn't going to be like the Scorpion fight, but at least now, he wasn't alone. The main dude told the girl that he and Kenzu would distract the beast while she went in for the attack. She agreed to follow his plan, but made it clear she wasn't going to keep doing what he said just 'cause he was the big killer. That was enough for teamwork. Kion activated his shadowless phantom blade technique. Kenzu unleashed his special level 2 uppercut. Kayla fired off level 4 magic bullets. But not only did that fail to kill the beast, it pissed it off. And now, it was going in for the kill. The massive wolf started spitting poison everywhere. Good thing they all managed to dodge in time. But there was a lot of it. If they weren't extremely careful, they were done for. This monster was strong as hell. Kayla's magic bullets worked better when she was up close to her target. She thought her shots would be fatal. But they didn't do a damn thing. That's when Kenzu decided to take it down with brute force. And almost got himself killed. Afraid of losing his partner again, Kion called Kenzu back. Kayla's weapon had no effect on the beast. It was way tougher than it looked. If Kion had mastered the shadowless soul-slicing technique, he could have cut through anything. But at his current level, no chance. So what does he need to do to take down this monster? On top of its devastating attacks, the beast was continuously spitting poison. One of those attacks finally hit our heroes. Kion's vision started to get worse and worse. It was because the poison had gotten into his system. No matter the technique, magic or not, his weapons and attacks couldn't even scratch the beast's skin. What were they supposed to do now? But then, a brilliant idea hit him. He asked the girl if she was ready for a full-scale attack. Even though Kion looked exhausted, his eyes were filled with determination. Preparing for such an attack would take a lot of time, so she could only use it once. Kayla simply put her trust in him. The reason the shadowless soul-hunting technique didn't work? It was because he had tried to kill the beast with a single strike. But looking at Kion now, in his current state, he'd be able to do it with the first blow. But what if that's just its outer layer? Our hero had mastered the world's most powerful sword technique, yet he couldn't even cut through its skin. How could he even look his master in the eye now? The magic balls Kayla used were spherical in shape. Upon impact with the target, their power decreased, and their penetration ability wasn't strong enough. But if she could reshape them into something more like real bullets, the penetration power would skyrocket. The two of them became one, combining their powers. Kion managed to break through the beast's outer shell, and Kayla landed the decisive blow, right where Kion had struck. Together, they managed to defeat the Black Blood Wolf, fighting side by side. They made an incredible team. If only for a moment they even forgot how different they were as people. The players nailed the mission, and now their voice is reppin' all the killers. She voted against Blood Day. Kion hopped on the wolf and just started slicing it up. Dude trying to make himself a fur coat or what? Kayla, of course, didn't get what the hell he was doing at first. Turns out, the guide said if you take down a monster, you gotta slice open its belly and eat its essence. Like a true gentleman, he offered some to the girl. She straight up gagged and said no. Something inside our guy shifted. He got a notification. Boom, now he's immune to 1,000 poisons. Basically, he's got resistance to every toxin in the tower. To the girl, dude was looking like a real-deal leader. Not only found the monster fast, but also sized up its skills with just one look. What did she expect? That's the power of a top-tier killer. Ain't no joke why he's a big deal. Since the 10th floor ain't turning into Blood Day, it's gonna be way harder to rack up the player kill count. A killer's job is to thin out the competition. Every assassin's got their own murder game plan. And if they don't stick to it, boom. penalty time, and judging by their perks, the punishment's gonna be brutal. Ever since she wrapped her head around him being a high-tier killer, convincing her of stuff got way easier. The dead can finally rest. The 9th floor mission is a wrap. No doubt that quest was rough, and it hit everyone in their own messed-up way. The monsters they had to kill were weak as hell, but everyone ended up facing their own families. Some saw their lovers, some ran into old friends. They all had to accept the death of their loved ones and let them go one last time. Hands down, the worst floor ever. Then, out of nowhere, one of the players, Den, got everyone back on their feet. They had to keep moving forward. Liam backed him up right away. No way they were just gonna sit around. They survived. They cleared the mission. If anyone had refused, they would have been gone alongside their loved ones. But they left all regrets behind and pushed through. Kion saw it. They were getting stronger and stronger, all because they had each other's backs. A portal opened. Next mission incoming. Time for trials in different dimensions. The players were about to get split up into different regions. The mission was taking them to Murim. That world was deep in a war between the orthodox, unorthodox, and demonic factions. Murim, the homeland of the heavenly demon, Kion's master. And if this world was anything like the stories, was there a chance he'd meet him again? Kion had barely scratched the surface of his master's techniques. Dude just didn't have the time. But if they crossed paths again, maybe, just maybe, he'd master it fully, to the point where he could one-shot a beast like it was nothing. Each player had to pick a faction to roll with, but it was pretty obvious from the jump who was picking which path. After a quick think, Dean and Liam joined the Orthodox faction. Leo, Den, and Celia sided with the unorthodox faction. Meanwhile, our main guy, Kayla, and Jane rolled with the demonic faction. Not everyone was thrilled about how the groups got split. The 10th floor mission kicked off. Each player had to live within their chosen faction for a set period. They were implanted with memories necessary for the task. This place was exactly how Master described it, the home of the divine cult of the heavenly demon. Now they were disciples of the divine cult. Could they survive the trials of the heavenly demon's path? Among them were martial arts masters mixed in with regular players from other regions. Kion could feel their strength and aura. Every single one of them was at least an advanced player. But one dude stood out. His energy was untouchable. The head examiner of the heavenly demon's path himself, Richard, one of the 12 elders of the divine cult. He hadn't stepped onto a battlefield in 7 years, but his palm strike technique could still obliterate anyone. One of the strongest martial artists out there, he declared that the heavenly path had 5 trials. Making it through 3 meant earning a spot as a cult servant. Step 1, filter out the weak. The examiner called them up one by one for the first trial. The first chick stepped up, ready to throw hands with the master. But boom, straight up bad luck, she botched the mission instantly. Richard didn't even have to break a sweat. Dude took her down without moving an inch. Ever since he became the head examiner, the first test had been checking the recruits one by one. Honestly, not a bad setup. If they fail, they just go back to the tower and the whole point is survival anyway. Kion asked if Kayla was down to take the test as a slave. The examiner overheard their little convo. As punishment, he called up the next girl. From the jump, Richard figured she was just another basic slave. Oh, how wrong he was. But, real talk, the girl had never even touched a sword before. Could she even pass the first test? She wasn't even trying to land a real hit, just swinging that sword around, and when the dude got distracted by one of her wild swings, Kayla whipped out a gun and straight up shot him in the face. Jane was loving the chaos while Kion was losing his mind. How the hell was she gonna explain pulling out a whole gun? She might as well have just announced she wasn't from this world. Then Richard said something unexpected. Was that a finger snap technique? And what's up with that gun in her hands? She was the first one to pass. Turns out, he didn't even see the weapon. The tower disguised it like she was shooting energy straight from her fingers. Sometimes her recklessness actually works out for everyone. Next up, the main dude. Kion stood in front of Richard, and it felt like he was facing a damn mountain. Richard wasn't as powerful as the master, but for someone at our guy's level, it didn't even matter. Both of them were way out of his league. The hero decided to start with water attacks. But Richard was toying with him, moving like a ghost. The dude couldn't even land a hit. The master admitted it wasn't bad, but nothing special either. He was about to end this. But then, plot twist. Kion realized this guy was a straight-up monster, someone who could have one-shot Kayla from the jump. Water attacks were an L from the start. Even if he was just another player, the celestial demon had personally chosen him as a disciple. That's not something to forget. And now he was going to show the examiner what he was really made of. He unleashed the spirit of the celestial demon heir, Chunma. Richard recognized that technique instantly. Hard not to. Kion's strike actually shattered the examiner's ornament. He had landed a hit, something no one but Kayla had ever done. He managed to surprise the master. He passed the test. Later that night, after the selection, the examiner invited the over privately. Right off the bat, Richard hit him with the truth. Dude had way too little energy, all 'cause he picked up some random-ass cultivation technique that not even stray dogs knew about. Kion started sweating. Was this really how he was gonna get wrecked? Over this? Magic power, aka energy, grew as your level increased, but he was still stuck at level 8. Out of nowhere, the teacher grabbed Kion by the shoulders and told him to stand still. Something was off. His energy pathways were blocked, but his body was straight up perfect for storing power. Richard still couldn't wrap his head around the idea that the celestial demon himself had trained this kid. That guy never took students. And even if he did, he sure as hell wouldn't pick someone with such low internal energy. But if this was real, if Kion was truly his successor, then he was destined to become the next celestial demon, the leader of the celestial demon cult, feared across the 10,000 mountains. Problem was, with energy this low, there was no way Kion was making it past the second trial. The so-called future celestial demon? About to end up a slave. So Richard decided to pull a straight-up cheat move to help him out. He pulled out 100-year-old ginseng and told Kion to eat it. If he did, he'd gain a decade's worth of internal energy in one shot. Richard explained it was a gift, since Kion's technique had actually impressed him. The teacher started training Kion for the next trial, and the kid followed every single instruction. He circulated the energy within himself and managed to grasp the basics of the radiant life art. The teacher believed in the kid. He wouldn't have given him that route otherwise. Kion was using the strongest technique of the divine cult's era. The dude couldn't fully process it. Did he actually earn this, or did he just get lucky? Either way, he had no clue what the real reason was. But one thing was for sure. Back in the academy, he learned to grab every opportunity that came his way. The next day, all the recruits who passed the trial were either training solo or resting up for the next challenge. Our trio was chilling, taking it easy before the next mission. And then, bam! Something came flying straight at them, smashing through the wall behind them. The culprit? One of the other recruits, David from the Blood Tribe. His skills were way above theirs. Just another cocky bastard who thought he was better than everyone else. And if there's one person who definitely wouldn't put up with that attitude, it was Kayla. That's exactly what they wanted, to provoke a fight. And yeah, they nailed it. Kayla wasn't the type to sit back and take insults. Kion, on the other hand, had a different mindset. He decided to shut down the fight before it even started. If they threw down now, they'd lose. Better to wait for the right moment. But then David said something he really shouldn't have. After the next trial, he was going to make Kayla his slave. Beast taming was his specialty, and with those words, he crossed way too many lines. And that? That was the last straw for Kion. His sword flared to life in his hand. If it weren't for the master stepping in to announce the next trial, the fight would have kicked off right then and there. David swore he'd be back, but this time our heroes would be ready for him. The examiner then made it clear anyone who passed this next challenge would be granted access to the advanced techniques of the divine cult. The day was blazing hot, so after that whole mess, getting some water was a damn relief. Naturally, everyone chugged it down without a second thought. But, plot twist, the water was poisoned. And this poison worked fast. The challenge? Purge the poison using their own internal energy. Richard watched Kion, knowing he had helped the kid, but unsure if it was enough. Thanks to the core inside him, Kion had built up a resistance to poison, and in this trial, that saved his ass. When Richard asked how he passed so fast, Kion just played it off, saying he had prepared in a special way. Truth was, while he was trying to grasp the radiant life force, he hadn't gathered enough energy to purge a poison this strong. The teacher was shocked. For someone like Kion to clear the poison this fast, he'd need to be a top-tier warrior. This kind of feat was only possible if he had been blessed by the Almighty. Maybe, just maybe, the celestial demon really had trained him. The second person to pass? David. Examiner Richard congratulated both of them for clearing the test so quickly. But Kion wasn't satisfied. He wanted to take the challenge with double the dose of poison. But why? Was this just some extra flex? Another test? David claimed he hadn't unlocked his full potential yet. He wanted a harder challenge. And for his opponent, he picked Kion. They called him the future of the blood tribe. Dude had been drinking poison since he was a kid. How could he be the best if someone just outclassed him? He saw himself as the true heir of the divine cult. No way Kion could handle this kind of test. Richard was about to shut the cocky bastard down, but Kion? He straight up accepted. But instead of just doubling the dose, Kion went for triple. And of course, our hero burned through the poison in mere minutes. David? Yeah, not so much. The dude was barely holding on, trying not to disgrace himself. In the end, he couldn't do it. Kion won. He was just better. And honestly, that win was easy, thanks to his poison immunity. Before long, Jane and Kayla also cleared the trial. Meanwhile, David was carted off to the med bay. And with that, the fates of all the recruits were sealed. Either they'd become slaves or future warriors. The next day, while eavesdropping on some cadets, Kion overheard them talking about something huge, something that looked kinda like a rabbit. And apparently, it was straight up nasty. Kion immediately knew who they were talking about. Kenzu. Man told them not to get spotted, but after overhearing that convo, David got real interested. Late that night, they rolled up to the spot where they last saw our kangaroo homie and decided to plant a snow blossom. They call it that 'cause when it blooms, it looks like a snowflake, a straight-up delicacy for mystical beasts. Judging by how the cadets were acting, this wasn't exactly allowed. Snow blossoms were crazy rare. Thing is, mystical beasts are loaded with internal energy, something that most elixirs can't even touch. David's plan? Soak up that energy and restore his former rep. But our heroes? They saw this coming from a mile away. Kion and Kenzu figured this was the perfect training opportunity. The cadets laid out their little bait for Kion's pet, thinking they had it all figured out. Kion gave the signal. It was go time. Kenzu launched out of hiding, snatching the flower. But just as he did, David attacked. Kenzu grabbed his prize, but the dude never got the chance to land a hit. 'Cause right then, Kion called him back. Kenzu straight up vanished in front of David's eyes, taking the rare flower with him.